ndio tuwapatie askari ya kuwachunga wasiharibu mali ya watu. Kama wanataka kufanya every day ama every week ama every month na kwa miaka ngapi, watu waambie wanataka kufanya hiyo maandamano, kwa sababu tumewazoea.
And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has insisted that the Kenya Kwanza administration will not be cowed into the handshake government with opposition leader Raila Odinga. Gachagua, who was speaking during an interdenominational service in Embu County, stated that Azimio can go ahead and stage demonstrations across the country over the besieged Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission commissioners, but they will not be blackmailed to a deal. Odinga has protested President William Ruto's move to suspend the four who differed with IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati over the August 9th election result. He condemned the suspension of Juliana Cherera, Justice Nyang'aya, Francis Wanderi and Irene Masit, terming them as political.
Kwanza amefukuza wale ambao walikuwa katibu wa kutenda kazi, yani principal secretaries. Principal secretaries are civil servants ambaye hatakikani serikali ikibadilika ati wanafutwa kazi. Wamefuta principal secretaries wote, karibu wote kazi. Alafu yeye anaajiri na analeta ubaguzi. Ametumia ukabila, tena ameonyesha sura mbaya ya ukabila, kutenganisha makabila zingine na kuweka kando. Hiyo sisi tunapinga hiyo.
And the Azimio leader has meanwhile hinted at a big revelation as he rallies supporters for his planned nationwide demonstrations due to various issues against President William Ruto's administration. Starting Wednesday, December 7th, Odinga pledged to bring down the President Ruto's system in the public rallies, which are set to kick off at the Kamkunji grounds in Nairobi. But while two parties under the Azimio coalition, Jubilee and KANU, have already pulled out of the planned demonstrations, the former Prime Minister took to social media to confirm that the rallies are still on. Odinga's demos stem from the ongoing probe of four Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission commissioners by Parliament. And Musalia Mudavadi has strongly complained about the presence of a UDA party candidate in the Bungoma senatorial race. Speaking in a series of campaigns for the candidate of the Ford Kenya party, Wafula Wakoli, Mudavadi emphasized that there was an agreement to leave the seat for the Ford Kenya party, even though some leaders have violated that agreement.
Sisi hatutapeana candidate yeyote kule Garissa. Hatutapeana candidate yeyote kule Marakwet. Hatutapeana candidate yeyote kule Murang'a. Na hapa tulikuwa tunajua kwamba hakuna mtu atapeana candidate kwa sababu Weta kwa niaba yetu alikuwa Ford Kenya, turudishe kwa hiyo nyumba ya Ford Kenya. Sasa kuna wengine ambao walikeuka hayo masikizano, wameenda mbele. Sisi tunasema mtoto akililia wembe mpatie.
His statement was emphasized by former Senator, now Speaker Moses Wetangula. Wetangula said Wakoli will have the power and influence to help the residents of the area.
Sasa wakati watoto wanatafuta kazi, wakimbia kwa Senator Wakoli, anapiga simu kwa Mukhwana, anapiga kwa Kisiangani, anapiga kwa Kimutai. He's spoiled for choice. Na kusema baba wa Roma amesema, na hivyo ndivyo
jitetea wenyewe. Ndio mimi I want to assure you, my speaker, my party leader, hakuna mtu atatutisha hii Bungoma kama uko na vijana kama Wafula Wakoli.
Wetangula either.
This is News where I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4. Get to see the world through a new lens and capture the moments that truly matter.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Hiya, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda. So, what are they
How
saying?
are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a man. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So I said, your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of the
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, Monday morning. Let's get into it. What does it look like on these streets? The rain started early this morning. It looks like it's going to slow things down considerably. We're going to have to take a look, see what Monday then pans out to be. It's not looking too bad. Coming off of Mombasa Road and getting into the city, we're seeing traffic is starting to build up on the Thika Superhighway, snaking along through into the CBD. Let's look at traffic coming out of Westlands. Looks like it's going to be a thing today. But apart from that, things are just at a dull roar this morning. And let's see what happens in about half hour or so. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Monday morning has started. Let's keep things right.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only way
All right,
to start
how you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. 5th day of December 2022. When do you start singing those things?
The first day of Christmas,
On
man.
On the 12th.
On Jamhuri Day.
That's when the first day of Christmas somebody said to you.
That's when the first day
No, that's the day
starts.
you sing the song.
The first day starts on the 5th day. On the 12th day. Sawa bana, ni sawa
Umalize kwa
bana.
hiyo siku ya 25th. No. Sasa ni ya
Ni sawa. Ni sawa. How you doing?
Mimi.
Uko fine, thank you.
Niko fine, thank you, Mimi. Sijui kwa nini my eyes are watering. Nasili, by the way. They're just watering. How do you say
Unalia.
your eyes are watering in Kiswahili?
Unalia machozi.
No, that's crying, no? Okay, how would I know? What's that? Okay, I've asked the question.
What is eyes watering?
I don't know, I'm asking.
It's tearing, isn't it?
Tearing, yeah.
Yeah. So tearing is that.
Tearing is the same. So you use the same words for tearing as you do for crying in Kiswahili?
Crying is kulia.
Mm-hmm.
Tearing is kutoa machozi.
Oh, kutoa machozi. Okay, sawa basi.
Au kulia machozi.
Okay. Sawa.
Ednah is saying you kulenga lengwa. That one. It's a whole completely new one.
That's a totally different conversation.
Maroa.
That's a totally different conversation. Ednah needs to tell us about what's going on with her this morning.
Lenga. I'm reminded of the former president, now the late President Kibaki. I'm not sure when you were talking about what I want to rega.
Rega tu hapa. Kulegea tu. How you doing, City?
Very well, thanks. Yes.
Good, man. I'm also well.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Tulikumiss kiasi.
Hata mimi bwana. Yeah.
Karibu sana.
Nimewaletea salamu nyingi sana kutoka Arusha, Tanzania.
Tunapokea.
Wamesema niwasalimie sana. Pia Wakenya wenzenu walioko humo Tanzania wamesema niwasalimie sana. Yeah. So there's A team of hoteliers in Tanzania that I met at Arusha 4 Points by Sheraton. And they said,
do.
wasalimia wenzako.
Do.
Salala. So salamu hizo hapo. Some prominent Kenyans like Supreme Court Judge Mohammed Ibrahim said hello to you.
Iyo tumepokea.
Na wengine wengi sana.
You're the carrier of salams.
Yes.
Welcome.
And customs and border officials at Namanga border. Also those said salam nyingi. Yeah. Sana. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's discuss very many things today. So number one, the International Anti-Corruption Day is coming up shortly. On what day? On the 90th.
The 90th.
Of December. And the head of corporate affairs and communication at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Eric Ngumbi, will be joining us at 7 a.m. to talk about the Anti-Corruption Day, what the EACC is doing, has been doing, and ought to be doing to highlight and to fight corruption. That is what? Sangapi? Samoja. Sambili asubuhi. We'll talk to Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, who will be joining us. So Jubilee says these things that Raila is talking about, maendeleo maandamano, they are not really sure that they really want to participate in them. Hawajui kama wako sure kama they want to. So Jeremiah Kioni will be here at 8 a.m. Let's talk about the Azimio coalition. Is it still one coalescing? Or are they having different conversations? Hayo yote na mengi kwa kipindi cha leo. What's happening with Chinese and whoever else?
Chinese, Nikama, the government has said, okay, wait, let's talk. But before we get there, let's look at what's happening in Kenya. 38 new cases from a sample size of 581 in the last 24 hours. Then gives Kenya a positivity rate of just under 8%. 84 recoveries, so not doing too badly. 32 of those cases have been in Nairobi, 2 in Nakuru and Siaya, and 1 in Kiambu and Nyeri each. We are looking at global numbers as well. We're still above 640 million cases of COVID, and about 10% of those have resulted in death. Well, all right, then let's take a look at what's happening in China. Can't run away from that because it's been a story for a couple of days. The world's harshest COVID restrictions exemplify how Xi Jinping's authoritarian excessives have rewritten Beijing's long-standing social contract with its people. Just so you know, this is according to the New York Times. The narrow alleys of Haizhu district have been long beckoned to China's strivers, people like Zhai Pan, a textile worker from a mountainous tea-growing area in central China. You ask why he tells this story? Because for the longest time, they've been able to rely on a social contract that has been made that we handle the government and we will handle as well everything that you need so you don't have to worry about life. But now things are getting a little bit thick, whereby the COVID restrictions have made sure that people stay home and are not able to chase after their livelihoods. There's been a fire where people have died. There have been testimony that had the restrictions not been so tight, perhaps the emergency workers would have gotten to the place of the fire much sooner. There's also the side which says that, look, there have been human rights excesses. There have been authoritarian and totalitarian rule coming out of Beijing. This is an opportunity for the Chinese people to actually speak out what their mind has been for all these years. In exchange for limitations on political freedoms in 1989, the people of China were promised stability and comfort, and it looks as though those times may be fast waning. The stability and comfort have dwindled even as limitations have grown. 530 million people were under some sort of lockdown in late November. 530 million, according to one estimate. People have died because of delayed medical care or gone hungry. The security apparatus is moving to suppress demonstrations against COVID-19, against zero COVID, the most widespread protests China has seen since Tiananmen Square. The police have detained and threatened participants around the country. The government, while not publicly acknowledging the protests, has also tried to blunt public outrage by easing restrictions, including lifting some lockdowns in Guangzhou. So this is what they've done. All right, you're making some noise, let's lift some lockdowns, but not everywhere. All right, so the question is China releasing its grasp on this rule, or are they saying, look, we've told you guys that we will give you stability and freedom, allow us to figure out how we're going to deal with the law.
All right.
Things are still thick in China. It looks like it'll be that way for us at some time.
Okay. It's 16 minutes after 6. Let's take this quick break, take a look at the weather forecast, and then we will also be looking at the newspaper headlines shortly. Yeah, I'm wearing the watch.
You're doing the thing.
I'm wearing the watch, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5.
And how is it ticking?
See, I can feel it.
Can you feel it?
Can feel it. Can feel it. Anyway, let's take this quick break. Are you online? Because we are. We'd like to hear where you are locked in from this morning, and we'll be doing our usual shout-outs shortly.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. The adults in the room.
He's promiscuous or he's polygamous. We need to get over ourselves.
So I should always know the man that marries me, I know there'll be other women.
Yes.
The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of the relationships you will have with other people. Things that we never talk about. 3 things. Stop, breathe, and relax.
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not.
Tune into Adults in the Room every Monday to Friday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
The Adults in the Room will help you stay winning. Only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, rains in Nairobi this morning at 16, highs of 25. And we're looking at Nakuru, where we'll see highs of 27. Clear skies this morning at 12. It's 10 degrees and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 24. And a good highs of 24 as well in a clear Eldoret at 13. Mostly clear conditions at 25 in Mombasa, highs of 32. And it'll go to highs of 32 as well in a sunny Malindi already this morning. It's 18 and mostly cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 30 in Kakamega, where it's cloudy at 16. Looking into Kampala, light rain at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 18, and mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam, highs of 32. We'll see highs of 23 in a clear Johannesburg at 17, coming down to lows of 14. It's mostly clear at 26 in Lagos, highs of 32, and we'll see highs of 30 in a mostly clear Kinshasa at 24. Out into Beijing, Monday afternoon, it's 3 degrees and sunny. We'll see highs of 5 and lows of minus 11. It's 2 degrees, it's cold, it's wet in Paris, highs of 4 and lows of 2, and we'll see lows of 4 in a cloudy London at 5, going to highs of 8. Looking into New York, Sunday night is mostly clear at 4 degrees, highs of 8 and lows of 0.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Who is online this morning?
Phineas Kaberia says he's tuned in from the great University of Embu. Okay. Good morning to you. Mwalimu Dominic Cheriot says good morning from Kaptarakwa EMC and says good morning, tuned in. Karibu Sana. Kaiser Obed is tuned in this morning, and from Nyali, Mombasa is where Ward Ajigo is. Okay. Mutuma Marimba says good morning, tuned in. Ndu CT Eric naendelea ku recruit wafuasi to tune in. What's wafuasi?
Followers.
Voila. Okay. Andrew Franklin is laughing out loud this morning. All right. Well, good morning to you.
Because of why?
I do not know. Something to do with the EACC. Why are you laughing?
Is he not allowed to laugh?
He's allowed to laugh. I'm just asking why.
Why? Why is he also not allowed not to tell you?
But knowing Andrew, I'm sure he will in a short while. Eric Latif, what is the name of that browsing app again that could save Sidri Nini? Vile umeulizwa ni wewe ulisema.
The one that could save sijui nini. Is one we were talking about the other day. What's it called?
And the sijui nini is what exactly?
It's sijui nini. It's Pocket by Mozilla.
Pocket by Mozilla.
Yes, thank you, Ednah.
Pocket.
Remember, it's the one that saves sijui nini.
Yeah, Pocket.
Yeah, that one.
Pocket in your pocket. Put it in your pocket. That's Drinini.
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. Collins Kim Tai Kipsat says good morning. And Bewa Macha is tuned in this morning. Check. Karibu. Asman Jr. says welcome back. Eric tuned in from Arsman Business in Athi River. Gurash Kev is tuning in from Qatar. Good morning from 254. Elizabeth Wanyoika Muli is in Kenya. You've been in somewhere. Wait. I know where. Florida. Sido. Elizabeth has been in Florida. She's now in Kenya. Everybody's coming home. I'm coming home.
It's that time, eh?
To the place where I belong. Okay. Kenneth, good morning from the United Kingdom. Of where? Be specific. Hezekiah Marenya says, good morning, tuned in, waiting to hear from Jeremiah Kioni. All right. Good morning, everybody, tuning from Narok East. And good morning, Waithera. Good morning to you. Jumbo, folks. Czech Republic, Baridu Tupu. Yeah. Everybody's in the single digits now in terms of weather. That's on that side. Good morning, Mombasa is tuned in. Good morning to you. Kwamthusi Mwingi is tuned in on Dicho. We see you. Cleophas Anam says he's tuned in from Kolwenya, Katsop County. Zachary Ondio, we see you. Eric Machabe and Wood Dala. Good morning, everybody. Karibuni sana.
Welcome, City.
Right.
Do the thing with the thing.
Do the thing with the thing. Like that app that does the thing with the thing.
It's the Chuinini.
Sijui nini. Oh, that is the sijui nini app.
Yes.
Lakini hili nilonalo nalijua. This thing which I have, I am knowing it.
Voila.
All right. Proverb from Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone.
Just next door to
Guinea.
Next door to Guinea. Yes. Remember last week I mentioned how Guinea borders Sierra Leone.
You did.
Well, this week Sierra Leone borders Guinea. Yes, just so that you understand. I remember how last week I also said that Guinea borders the Atlantic Ocean. Again, this week Sierra Leone
borders Sierra Leone.
But you've got it.
I'm with it, man.
No, you're with it. And you remember also I mentioned a country called Liberia. We're still neighbor Liberia. Hey. Now, the interesting thing is the capital of Sierra Leone is called
Freetown.
Right, it is. Hapo kwa button. Pam. Right. Now, they speak English. It's the formal official language. However, the most widely spoken language is
Creole.
Hey, spelled K-R-I-O, but otherwise it's actually Creole. C-R-E-O-L-E.
Yes.
That is the lingua franca.
Yeah.
And it unites all the 16 ethnic groups. Everyone speaks it. Okay? What's our Creole? Or what's the equivalent of Creole in Kenya?
Swahili.
Yeah.
What's the origin of Creole? How many countries speak Creole globally?
Quite a number. You got some countries in Central America, in the Caribbean, West Africa,
and
those are the two main.
It's a mixture of.
It's a mixture of English and local. Interestingly enough, it transcended from a combination of languages and then went on to become a mixture of English and the local dialects and a bit of French. You're rocking.
So it's Sheng.
It is. That's what I was going to say. I wouldn't say Kiswahili. It's colloquialism.
Actually, you would. You know why? Think of a language that is spoken universally in the country. Yes, Kiswahili is, but Sheng in pockets. Creole is not in pockets. So it's equivalent.
Creole in Sierra Leone and Liberia is not in pockets.
No, it's not.
It's around. It's
everybody.
It's universal.
Everybody they speak it.
Everybody they speak them.
See, I was close. I only missed the arm. Right. Okay.
The proverb.
Come in Creole, isn't it?
That one. I'm sure it does.
Okay.
However full a house is, hens always find a place to lay in.
However full a house is, hens always find a place to lay.
Yes. In. Ndio hiyo mwisho wa jua.
Kulea kulala ama kulea kutega?
Sasa jua yako bwana, hamua utakavyo.
Take my pick.
Wewe bwana, chagula msikizaji.
Lele, tulele o tule egg.
Yes.
Sawa. Sawa, ni sawa basi.
Sawa?
Sawa basi. Sawa bana. Have you gotten the Standard Insider? Have you bobbed and gotten the Standard Insider? Save 100 bob by subscribing to the Standard Insider. 199 shillings a month. This is by going to www.standardmedia.co.ke. It is a premium content. It's very, very good content delivered to you according to your needs. So you select what you want. You like sports, you like business, you like politics, you like current affairs, you like county news, you select what you want, and that is what is served to you. So basically you're getting news and information served to you according to your preferences. www.standardmedia.co.ke. That's where to go. Standard Insider. Higher. What's on the front pages?
On the front page of the Standard, mass action, Ruto, Raila, lock horns. And there are things that people are saying. President Ruto warns the opposition against shedding blood and damaging property during the planned Cherera 4 protests, even as Raila Odinga criticizes Ruto's leadership style and insists that the public rallies will go on. Okay. So there's also a special report by the Standard today about his huge task to clean up the rot in sports. Something you better get on.
Mm-hmm.
On the front page of The Nation, deadly voyage. There's an exclusive, explainer really, into they went never to return for hundreds of young women leaving Kenya for the Middle East in search of domestic work every month. Chances that they would give up the promise of a better life are slim. Despite tales of horror and death at the hands of cruel employers, will the promise by Labour CS Florence Bore to prioritise Saudi Arabia in safety interventions bring the madness to an end? C'est la question. Teachers happy. Head teachers welcome an end to delocalization policy, saying it was a home breaker. We look at that. That's on the back page. Teachers are happy to see the end of transport policy. We will give details on that. The CS, 2.9 billion shillings of the Hustler Fund loans have been disbursed.
2.9 billion shillings.
That's right.
Sorry, again?
2.9 billion shillings.
Did what exactly?
Of the Hustler Fund has been disbursed.
Right.
Yes. Right. I'll give you details of that one later.
That's a good thing.
And apparently, Riggy G has a power plan. The quest for Mount Kenya leadership linked to laying the foundation for his presidential bid. Not too early in the game for anything, is it?
The early bird does something, doesn't it?
It does catch something.
Uh-huh.
That is, if the something isn't aware that that bird is going to come in early.
Voila.
It left early as well.
It also left early. It took on the persona of said bird.
Umemaliza? Hizo?
Umemaliza.
Haya.
Tukwambia baadaye.
The Star?
Star. How KAA sank 5 billion Kenya shillings in stalled airport project. Cash paid to 2 flagship initiatives that were later abandoned under controversial circumstances. White Elephant. Auditor General Githungu says money might never be recovered. That is the headline in the Star. The headline in the Business Daily, Kenyans' average monthly income climbs to 20,123. The annual gross national income per capita grew by 11.6%.
In what period?
Okay, this one is they don't say. Actually, they do say.
I'm sure they'll give the details.
No, they do say. I'm the one who's being lazy. Forgive me. Let me get to the point. It is I, Charles T. Muga, who was being lazy. This one is for the period leading up to 2021. Yes, that's the we're talking about 2021.
Okay.
From 2019, 2020, after COVID, 2021, we're now here. By 2021, it had started showing the leap, hop, step, and jump.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Higher. Sawa. Let's take a break. It's 6:30. You didn't tell us what you're reading this thing from, the proverb, from the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8.
Somebody
Ultra.
took his tab on Saturday.
No, the tab was returned.
Somebody took it on Friday and
Someone
brought it
taken
back.
But it is in my mind that it hadn't returned. But the tab was returned.
The tab is here.
Right, I'm even looking at it as I speak. Yes.
That's
Still
very
doing the
important. It's
business.
very important.
I will do so.
It's very, very important. It's very, very, very important.
For what I will do, I will punch things in to the point where I will. There's a story I'll be telling you.
Use the pen. Don't punch. Use the S pen. I mean,
Why punch when you can pen it down?
hey,
Point taken.
Senor.
Point well received. I will punch it with the S pen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Available in select Samsung stores countrywide.
All right, so what are we looking at in terms of traffic? The traffic has even disappeared. Okay, let's find it again and look at what's going on the Thika Superhighway. There's traffic coming into the CBD. The service lanes are not looking too bad. There's an option for you to use to then get into the city. We're also looking at the Southern Bypass, which looks good. The forgotten bypass. Now that the expressway came, you forgot that the bypass can help your lives. Can still help you. Today, justice for the Southern Bypass. Okay, we're looking at Jogo Road and there's some traffic coming off of there. Landys Road traffic started really early today. We saw a lot of outbound traffic on Friday and we're seeing some inbound traffic. All right, we're seeing that, a number of more students have closed school and have gone home. So we're seeing lower levels of traffic. KCSC continues, but, folks are not really moving anywhere. Coming off Thika Superhighway, it's now heavy coming towards the Pangani Underpass. But before that, you should be fine without too much of an issue. Westlands looks like it's going to be an absolute mess today. The rains are coming down, and so we expect movement to be slower. We're asking that you be careful regardless. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter and try to keep things moving this morning.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right.
94.4.
Important steps up to shine with the newspaper headlines. Let me tell you about stepping up and shining with a Kiwi shoe polish. Buy a tub of Kiwi black shoe polish and you stand a chance of winning what and what?
You know what?
Yeah.
When you buy the tub and you send the code to that star, you dial star 456 hash star stroke
Star
9.
459 star 5 hash. Yes.
And then you send the code to that number, you get instant airtime. Instant. You win, as in you're guaranteed to win. Then you enter into the draw to be able to win 35,000 shillings that goes towards school fees. 36 different people will be able to walk away with school fees worth 35,000 shillings until the 7th of February.
36 different winners of 35,000 shillings each.
Exactly. And even if you win, you know what you can do? You can gift it to somebody who is in need. Isn't it great that you can win it and maybe you don't have need for school fees, but you can have somebody else win and just send their name through. So you win airtime, it's guaranteed. And then you enter into the draw to be able to win weekly school fees of 35K. I love it. Step up and shine.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So tell us that story.
Let me tell you the story. You guys know how this thing is close to my heart. Deadly voyage. Now, the nation has done its exclusive for hundreds of young women leaving Kenya for the Middle East in search of domestic work every month. Chances are that they would give up the promise of a better life are slim. Despite tales of horror and death at the hands of cruel employers, will the promise by Labour CS Florence Bore to prioritize Saudi Arabia in safety interventions bring the madness to an end? It truly is madness. So there's a whole story covering 2 pages, quite a number of column inches this morning, looking at the horror that some people have gone through. Those who've gone to work have been, abused by their employers. There are pictures of 8 women on the front page of The Nation who unfortunately did not come back. If they did, they came back dead. It talks about women who tried to get in touch with their families after having gone into the employ of several, but this never happened. it went on about those who knew that something was not right. The interesting side of this story is that when people leave the country and these horror stories are told, every night leaving Nairobi, there are plane loads of women who are still going to seek employment in the Gulf states. And the question is, how will all of this come to an end? The new CS says that they are now going to be involved in the recruitment process. They have said that, this story is a narrative of sorts, but the government is involved in the entire recruitment process, including issuing certificates of good conduct, scrutinizing the identification documents of job seekers, and confirming that medical reports are genuine. Once that is done, the data is filled into what is called the Musaned system, which we heard about. And then it connects agents in Kenya and the government to the agents in Saudi Arabia and the governments there. Musaned is straightforward and known by the government, and every girl going to Saudi Arabia must be known and registered in the system. The Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Labour are involved in the system, and all agents are registered to the system. Asked whether more women are still visiting their offices seeking jobs in foreign countries, one of the agents of whom the story was written chuckled before answering. The business is going on well. The girls are still going, but it is getting a bit slower because when they hear dreadful stories, they become afraid. But our children are not going to murder us. The agents insist that everything is all right, but the story of those who go is something different. Now, we go on to hear that the latest data places Saudi Arabia as the fastest growing source of remittances to Kenya, illustrating that several reported cases of human rights violations and abuse of labor laws. Many Kenyans are seeking work still flock to the kingdom.
As they should.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if there are opportunities, Kenyans will pursue those opportunities. They have a government that has an entire embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. They have a government that has an entire commission authority called Employment Authority in Kenya. They have a government that has signed deals between Kenya and Saudi Arabia to ensure their safety and all. So it's upon the government to do what the government ought to be doing. Alpha Mutua's first task, once he was sworn in, was to fly to Saudi Arabia. And he went there and he held meetings. And he said, we're going to make sure that we do better.
Yeah.
Now, what we should be expecting to see is whether this better is actually going to take place. There are two PSs in his office. One PS is called Korir Singh-Oei, he's a PS for Foreign Affairs. And there's another PS called Roslyn Jogu, who is the PS for Diaspora Affairs. Those two PSs, plus the CS Alfred Mutua, plus the Mr. Agego, the ambassador in Saudi Arabia. Those ones. They're the ones. Yeah.
It's interesting because sadly the reality as revealed by security personnel at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is bleak. No matter how much you highlight stories of suffering of Kenyans in the Middle East, the truth is we see girls here every day still heading to the same Saudi Arabia. In fact, as we speak, I am sure many of them are on their way to Riyadh and all those other countries there. One wonders, just when will all this come to an end?
What this coming to an end is what exactly? What are they referring to?
Not the travelling of persons, but what they're saying is, look, when will the suffering of particular women come to an end? We can't look, and with all these horror stories, as is often the case with bad news, that it is at the minimum. The majority of the people who are going out there are still remitting money back to Kenya, are still working and working well. Their contracts come to an end, they come back home, and then they seek another round at it. The stories that we hear, unfortunately, are in the minimum. It doesn't mean that it should continue, but what we are saying is that there should be a foolproof system. The PSs that you speak of, there should be a foolproof system so that not one Kenyan comes back in a box.
That minimum has grown. At least the reporting of that minimum has grown. And that's what's raising alarm bells. But the alarm bells that it also raises have nothing to do with Saudi Arabia. It has to do with Kenya. Why is it that we do not have opportunities that can adequately meet the needs of our youth?
Well, it's okay. We should have opportunities at home, but we should be able to have opportunities everywhere in the world.
Yes, and the government should do everything within its means to ensure that those opportunities are availed and that those who want to can take advantage of those opportunities. I'm in full agreement. I am simply saying this. The options that our young people have should not be limited. But with the limitations, there should be guarantees.
Look, there should be guarantees that as a citizen of Kenya, if you go to work in another country, under a system which clearly your government has an idea about, that you should be kept safe. That should anything happen when you're in the employ of somebody else, your government should be able to intervene and say, what on earth is going on here? Can we get some kind of reprimand, or should we be able to bring this individual back? Unfortunately, the lines have been really, really blurred. We give examples of Singapore, where, yes, they have a huge number of people who go out to work in the same Gulf states, but the Singapore government is aware of each and every individual who is working outside their country, and if anything blows up, they're ready to go in and sort it out. And that's all we're saying. And the Philippines as well.
And in Philippines, the numbers are even larger.
You have au pairs who are working in the Gulf.
The Philippines is actually a government strategy to send the people out.
They know who is working where. Call up their name, they'll be able to find them. They know the contracts. They know how much they're paid.
Bangladesh, the same.
Come on.
The thing is, it's a discussion, I think, whose direction perhaps ought to change. And instead of focusing on the young ladies, we should focus on what the government is doing to ensure that these people who go out of the country, who wish to go out, are afforded the security and the safety that they need as Kenyans. Because what do we have the embassies in these countries for?
Exactly. This is it.
What are they for?
This is it.
So that we can have an ambassador. Why?
And then the drawn-out tussle between, all right, somebody's stuck or somebody's sick and has not then been able to attain medical care and attention. And then you start going back and forth. Oh, MOFA here, MFA there. I mean...
Right. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So the headlines in the Nation Standard this morning about Raila and Ruto and mass action, right? So let's start with the Standard one. The Standard is on page 6 and 7, where the horns are locked between these two leaders. Ruto dares Raila to lead demos and says state will protect property. Azimio leader vows to hold protest rally. Now, President William Ruto has assured Kenyans that police will protect property and lives in the event of the opposition makes good its threat to hold protests. He said he has asked Interior CS Kindiki Kithure to demand the schedule of the protests so that police can deploy to protect businesses against looting during the mass action. Higher, on the other side, Azimio leader Raila Odinga says Kenyans are already impatient with President William Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza government. This, he says, is the reason that he will be holding public meetings at Kamukunji grounds in Nairobi on Wednesday. Speaking at an Azimio rally for the Utawala ward by-election yesterday, Raila vowed that he will hold a parallel meeting at the same grounds on Jamhuri Day. He called on the public to turn up in large numbers for the two rallies, which he says will provide a way forward in seeking to put the government in check. The Azimio leader is accusing Ruto of having promised Kenyans that the hustler funds will be interest-free, yet they're now getting little loans which cannot solve their problems. You all heard Ruto moving around the country promising Kenyans very many things, including interest-free hustler fund. Have Kenyans gotten the cash that they were promised? This is an obvious sign that he is not going to keep his promises. He is criticizing Ruto for leaving out some communities in government appointments. The opposition leader said the president had promised Kenyans during campaigns that he would ensure all communities were represented in government. Ruto has clearly shown a bad example very early in his leadership, where in his appointments he has left out some communities. He needs to tell us why some communities deserve more positions than others, yet all are Kenyans and they deserve to be treated equally. And on and on and on it goes. And the Nation has my war with Ruto, that is the Raila's war with Ruto, high cost of living, lack of ethnic balance in appointments to state jobs, plan to import GMO, maize, among the reasons that Raila is unhappy with Ruto. Aya.
Bless you.
So, he says he is going to hold the government to account by holding rallies. Now, I hear what he's saying, but I just don't see what he's saying. There are very many members in the National Assembly and the Senate and the county assemblies and governors, right? Where these questions should be raised. Where questions about the Hustler Fund and the contents of the Hustler Fund, questions about balancing appointments. These appointments are being vetted by committees of the National Assembly and being voted by the entire plenary of the National Assembly. What are Azimio MPs doing in Parliament? Are they raising sufficient objection to this, or are they passing their appointees? If they are passing their appointees, then the Azimio leaders in Parliament, whom the people of Kenya voted for, are failing. Raila is the leader of Azimio. He should be calling the people for Kamukunji, not Kamukunji of everybody, Kamukunji of MPs, Kamukunji of senators, and saying, Kamukunji of MPs and senators, come, challenge this. Kamukunji of MPs and senators. A law was passed in the National Assembly last week that is seeking to amend how members of the IEBC, commissioners of the IEBC, shall be appointed. This has passed quite clearly in the National Assembly. It's now in the Senate. What kind of opposition shall we see to this in the Senate? Apart from that, I don't think Raila should be calling people to stop doing what they are doing and going to Kamukunji to spend days with him.
What is going to be the outcome of these rallies?
I don't know.
Rallies? So the rallies are an outcome. I mean,
it's an outcome by itself.
Yes, complete. There's something interesting about what you say, because that view seems to be shared by some people whom the Star refers to as rebel ODM members in Nyanza. There's an article on page 25 of the Star. It says, leaders say they will go around villages asking residents to boycott Azimio leaders' mass action plans. Now, among those leaders are former Kisumu Governor Jack Ranguma, Fred Outa, who was a former senator, current Suba MP Karoli Omondi, former Ariede MP Fred Gumbo. They were all in my neck of the woods. They were in Koru over the weekend, drumming up, talking about these things. Let me just read a line or two.
Yes, please.
Okay? Rebels from ODM are spoiling for a fight with party leader Raila Odinga, urging supporters from his Luo Nyanza backyard to ignore his calls for countrywide demonstrations against the government. Raila has called for rallies to protest beginning Wednesday, claiming President William Ruto is threatening the country's democracy. The Azimio leader last week declared that the coalition would commence anti-Ruto rallies on December 7th following the suspension of the IEBC commissioners Juliana Cherera, Justice Nyang'aya, Francis Wanderi and Irene Maset. The opposition chief says the rallies would pile pressure on Ruto to rescind his decision to dismiss the embattled IEBC chiefs. The president has appointed a tribunal headed by Court of Appeal Judge Agri Muchalule following a recommendation by Parliament. We are tired of demonstrations. Let Luos turn over a new leaf, because you can't do one thing the same way all the time and expect different results. This is what one Mr. Owalo said. Okay?
Owalo is a CS.
Owalo is no less CS. Okay? Now, the story goes on. I know leaders, including me, who have paid a lot of hospital bills to people injured in previous demos. Let us refrain. And the story goes on and on and on. Two things here. One, there is the call. And then there seems to be a growing voice of would-be leaders, with the exception of Karoli Omondi, who actually won the Suba South seat. Former governor, former senator, former MP. There seems to be a growing voice of individuals who are opposed to these rallies. The issue isn't that they're opposed to rallies, they're opposing Raila directly. That's exactly what they're doing. I would like to see the outcome of this. Yes.
Where it goes beyond this.
Yes, whether they will be listened to or whether the people will decide that they are going to do what Raila has asked them to do. When one flexes their political wings or muscle, then one observes the outcome, shouldn't one?
Yep.
Yes.
One should observe the outcome.
Yes.
That's what we should.
But Raila, this one, come on. Come on.
You know, I was thinking about this thing over the weekend. And something came to my mind. I said, how do you hold a government to check? What are the options that one has? Protests have worked in the past. I asked myself the question, are protests needed now? When people protest, what do you hope to achieve? The problem is, whenever we think protest, we think mayhem. We think tear gas. We think police chasing people and people running away.
Yes.
Running battles.
Yes, we think people getting injured.
That's what we are accustomed to.
That is what, the moment you talk protest, that's what comes to mind.
Yep.
And that is something that any mind will reject and say, no, I do not want this. So, if these are going to be different protests, yet again, we will see, won't we? Yes. But protests do not conjure up pleasant memories.
Well, there's nothing in the wording in the clarion call for this protest that is packaging them as different from other protests. That's where I'm coming from. There's nothing that has been said here that, you know what, we are holding vigils, we are holding the government to account, and then we shall tell our MPs this is what we want our MPs to do. Because remember, I keep saying, the millions of Kenyans who turned up to vote on the 9th of August, elected leaders, across all the 6 positions, right?
Yes.
Yes, not sufficient numbers elected Raila as president. He claims that now he has a dossier that he's going to be unleashing in coming days on how he won the election. Yeah. Story we've heard before for many years. But people elected MCAs, people elected MPs, people elected senators. Those people are earning a salary. Raila, as their leader, should be saying, as the opposition, this is what we should be doing to hold the government accountable. Not coming back to us and telling us to hold the government accountable where our MPs are sitting there in parliament. What are they doing?
They're not holding the government accountable. That's why. So they have to be told. You see...
So he should lead.
If
he can't lead a small pack of people.
Actually, we're discussing politics. And sometimes I'm afraid to discuss politics because I'm talking about something that I can see, but I don't really ever see the whole picture. Because conversations in politics, some of the things we see here, they amount to dog whistle conversations. What's going on and what's really going on are not necessarily the same thing. Yes. And that's why I have this position where I say I'm waiting for it to unfold so that I can actually understand.
To see where it goes.
Because it isn't one ball in the air.
There are very many.
Yes.
Unfortunately. And I think you can even pick from what Rigathi Gachagua was saying yesterday.
Yes.
Giving a direct message. We in the mountain voted for you. We in the mountain do not want that money in this government. We in the mountain. So what this man did in the other government, we in the mountain. He's basically saying, is this man calling out to seek your attention so that you can have a conversation? And if you have a conversation, what does that mean to me and mine? Right?
And here I am positioning myself nicely to do this and the other.
And to do this and the other.
As I said, there are so many balls in the air in this particular one.
Yeah.
Okay? That everything that we're looking at here amounts to a possibility.
Sure, difficult for you to make a decision on that.
My pain is that a dog whistle could end up with an innocent death.
It could bring about the sort of problems we don't need.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of a certain police force? We keep talking about Kwekwe. We keep talking about Flying Squad.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
We keep talking about RDU. Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Morality Police?
Morality Police?
Wow.
Allah?
Well, we don't have them here.
Oh, man. I'm excited.
But in 1979, after there was a revolution in Iran that overthrew the Shah of Iran, the wearing of a hijab became mandatory. It's that garment that ladies wear, okay? Now, Punde had not become Punde before other things came in and a law was established where there was a particular morality police who are tasked with enforcing laws on Islamic dress codes and other behaviors in public. They began patrolling the streets in the year 2006 after they were established by the hardline president Mohammed Ahmadinejad. In accordance with Iranian law, women post-pubescent girls must wear head covers, rings, and loose-fitting clothes in public. Yes, essentially they must wear tents. The morality police, sorry. Okay, I continue. Have been accused of arbitrarily detaining women for transgression. Now, why I mentioned this story, women protested.
Yeah.
A 22-year-old girl, an Iranian of Kurdish origin, died. My friend, so strong was the protest that when it came, the Iranian government scrapped the morality police.
Police out.
Yes. That was after 2 more months of protest. What am I saying? I am saying that sometimes there are laws that are put in place which serve a purpose. The people who put them in place believe they serve a purpose. But if the people on whom you are trying to apply this law do not understand the purpose or don't agree with it, that law of yours will come across serious headwinds. China is experiencing it. I'm tying it in with the story that we had about the protest in this country. If the people do not want this protest, it will be called for, people will not go. Yes. If they do, then the question isn't why have they gone? The question is they must ask themselves, what do they hope will be achieved?
Yeah. What do they want to the end?
Yes. What do they hope that these things will achieve? The things that they feel haven't been done, do they think that these protests will actually achieve these things that they have wanted and they've hoped would be achieved all along? Yes. Because whenever people do not agree with a certain dictate, they will show.
They will come up.
Yes, either ignore it or they will protest, but they will tell you. Yes.
You will be able to tell.
You'll be able to tell.
So the morality police is what has been disbanded.
Kabisa.
But the law that was set up by Ahmadinejad has
No,
not
that one
been,
is still in place.
That's still in place.
Yes, so the harassment is what has gone down. Yes. Because the police were seen as the what? The face of this particular
thing.
law.
Okay.
So remove them.
Because they're the ones who harassed somebody and
Yes.
this led to the death.
Yes.
All right. In Kenya, people were complaining about a certain police unit. It was
Called?
disbanded.
In Nigeria?
People protested against a certain police unit. It was disbanded. Another one has been established.
Another one was?
Yeah.
The king is dead. Long live the king.
Long live the king.
Coming up to the top of the hour, this is the situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Yeah, in the next hour, we'll also be telling you about Centum Real Estate and the project they have in the Pingo development. The phase 1 of the Pingo development completed, 500 homes handed over. Phase 2 is coming up in the Pingo. And what you need to do is just think about how you can get yourself a house from as low as 2.45 million shillings for an apartment to 15.5 million shillings for villas. Also, you can own a plot for just 2.8 million shillings with a deposit of just 245,000 shillings. All these will be giving you the details. This is Centum Real Estate at Vipingo Development in Kilifi County. A very good morning to you. Keep it here for more conversations. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto has continued with his charm offensive of elected leaders in Azimio as he seeks to deepen his support, especially in the areas that voted for the opposition. The latest to meet with President Ruto is Kakamega County Governor Fernandez Baraza, who was accompanied with some Azimio leaders. Ruto and Baraza's meeting at the State House come ahead of the president's 2-day visit to Kakamega County starting Thursday this week. Among the issues that the governor discussed with Ruto to strengthen the health services at the Kakamega County Referral Hospital and improving the gold mining business in Ikolomani, fully reviving Mumias Sugar Company and expanding the Kakamega airstrip. This comes just 2 days after Kotu boss Francis Atwoli, who strongly opposed Ruto's bid to become president, met with the president's State House. Among other leaders of the Azimio who have met with Ruto include Mombasa Governor Abdul Samad Sharif Nasir. And President Ruto has chastised Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga for his plan to hold public rallies, stating that he will not be deterred from making progress in the country. President Ruto claimed that Raila is fond of disrupting any progress made by the government, but it will not stop him from growing the nation's economy.
Mimi nimemwambia Profesa Kindiki aulize hawa watu schedule ya maandamano, ndio tuwapatie askari ya kuwachunga wasiharibu mali ya watu. Kama wanataka kufanya every day ama every week ama every month, na kwa miaka ngapi, watu waambie wanataka kufanya hiyo maandamano, kwa sababu tumewazoea.
Meanwhile, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has insisted that the Kenya Kwanza administration will not be cowed into a handshake government with opposition leader Raila Odinga. Gachagua, who was speaking in Embu, stated that Azimio can go ahead and stage demonstrations across the country over the besieged Independent Election Boundaries Commission commissioners, but they will not be blackmailed to a deal.
Mzee ameshindwa mwaka wa 2017 na Rais Uhuru Kenyatta na William Ruto. Ameleta maandamano, ameuzia Uhuru Kenyatta uoga, Uhuru amenunua. Amemleta kwa serikali yake ya handshake. Hii akabomoa serikali yetu, alibomoa hakubomoa. Hizi barabara zote munalia hapa alisimamisha. Madems alisimamisha. Akateka rais wetu nyara, akamuondoa hapa, akampeleka huko kwao. Hapa tukaumia. Sasa tumemshinda. Ameanza lugha ya maandamano. Na nia yake ni ile ile. Ati auzie huyu rais wetu uoga, ati aitwe kwa handshake. Inawezekana? Rais wetu, tunakuomba tukiwa hapa kwa mlima, president wetu, sisi tumechangia kiasi kikubwa kwa serikali yako. Hiyo mzee hatutaki kwa serikali yetu. Na huyo mtu wacha afanye maandamano asubuhi, saa 7 jioni, hakuna handshake.
Meanwhile, Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga has hinted at a big revelation as he rallies supporters for his planned nationwide demonstrations due to various issues against President William Ruto's administration. Starting Wednesday, December 7th, Odinga pledged to bring down President Ruto's system in the public rallies, which are set to kick off at the Kamkunji grounds in Nairobi.
Kwanza amefukuza wale ambao walikuwa katibu wa kutenda kazi, yani principal secretaries. Principal secretaries are civil servants ambaye hatakikani serikali ikibadilika ati wanafutwa kazi. Wamefuta principal secretaries wote, karibu wote kazi. Alafu yeye anaajiri na analeta ubaguzi. Ametumia ukabila, tena ameonyesha sura mbaya ya ukabila, kutenganisha makabila zingine na kuweka kando. Hiyo sisi tunapinga hiyo.
But while two parties under the Azimio coalition, Jubilee and KANU, have already pulled out of the planned demonstrations, the former Prime Minister took to social media to confirm that the rallies are still on. Odinga's demos stem from the ongoing probe of the 4 Independent Election Boundaries Commission commissioners by Parliament. And Musalia Mudavadi has strongly complained about the presence of a UDA party candidate in the Bungoma senatorial race. Speaking in a series of campaigns of the candidate of the Ford Kenya party, Wafula Akoli, Mudavadi emphasized that there was an agreement to leave the seat for the Ford Kenya party, even though some leaders have violated the agreement.
Sisi hatutapeana candidate yeyote kule Garissa. Hatutapeana candidate yeyote kule Marakwet. Hatutapeana candidate yeyote kule Murang'a. Na hapa tulikuwa tunajua kwamba hakuna mtu atapeana candidate kwa sababu Weta kwa niaba yetu alikuwa Ford Kenya, turudishe kwa hiyo nyumba ya Ford Kenya.
This is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Today's Newswire is powered by Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro. Listen to crisp and clear sounds while on the go.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, heavy on Jogo Road and it's going out towards the city this morning. And we're looking at it piling up on Landis and then out towards Lusaka in one direction and then through to Kamkunji in another. We're also seeing it built up quite heavily so on the Thika Superhighway coming out through past Survey and as well as Kiambu Road. Limuru Road is also following in fine suit this morning. Really heavy traffic then coming out there. Into the CBDs where we see a lot of it as well, coming out of Westlands. It's also continuing to build up on Waiaki Way. Coming off of James Gishore, it doesn't look too bad right now. We're likely to see more of that action coming closer to 8 o'clock. But for now, it looks like traffic is starting to build up in many parts of the city and it will just be kept at this minimum for some time. We can only hope for the best. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. We want to keep things moving this morning. Let us know what you see where you are. If you find a good route, let us know. If you're stuck somewhere, let us know that too and we'll share.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
It's
the only way to start your day.
Welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. Happy Monday, 5th day of December 2022. We're all here. It's Eric, CT, and Ndu, and we have a guest in the studio from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Before we welcome and give him an opportunity to speak to us, CT Muga is looking at his Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra with an S Pen, which has been using to take notes and write notes in preparation for the next hire.
Eric,
you've been doing things, Bana.
You know, I have to ask you, have you actually seen how well this particular companion functions?
No, I was amazed by the magic that you actually were scribbling in your handwriting and the thing could read your handwriting and actually turn it into proper words.
I have been spoken to. My handwriting has been given a name. I shall not comment on it beyond what I have just said.
I'm not saying you have a bad handwriting or a good handwriting. I'm just saying it's your handwriting.
It's a scribbling of my handwriting, which this gadget is able to decipher, isn't it? So it required deciphering.
Proper alphabets.
Let me just read the proverb and move away from the jibes that are being directed at my writing.
Oh, wow.
Our proverbs for this week will be from the country of Sierra Leone. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Sierra Leone is next to the country that we spoke of last week, known as
Guinea.
Very good. Which is also a neighbor to which other country that I mentioned last week?
Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much.
I was actually trying to say Liberia.
No, I know where you're going with this. Anyway, it's also next to the Atlantic Ocean. However full houses, hens always find a place to lay in.
However full houses, hens will always find a place to lay in.
Yes. If someone hasn't lived with chicken, they may not understand this. But anyone who grew up or spent time in the rural areas and saw how domesticated mini chicken are, you will understand what this means.
Even many who've grown up in the urban areas, especially very many people who've grown up in the urban areas.
When it's time for the hen to lay, it will, and the place where it normally lays is occupied for whatever reason, it will find a place to lay.
That's it. Point well made. Yes.
Eric Ngumbe is the Corporate Affairs and Communications boss at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Again, welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with that proverb from Sierra Leone. Do you connect with that proverb? No matter how full the house is, a hen will always find a place to lay in.
I cannot agree more. And in the context of what we do, what has to happen must always happen and will always happen.
What has to happen will happen.
Yeah.
The river must follow its course.
Regardless of any obstacles.
Right.
Or any clucking by the side.
Oh, yes.
And any shutting of the house. Okay. Eric, you're here because we're talking about the International Anti-Corruption Day, which will be commemorated on the 9th. This is a big day across the globe. Give us the background of this day. Why is it? Who decided that there will be one day to commemorate anti-corruption? And why is it commemorated?
You are right that on Friday, the 9th day of December 2022, Kenya will join other nations to commemorate the International Anti-Corruption Day. This is a day that was designated as such by countries that are parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. The abbreviation that we use is UNICAC. So I'll severally use that abbreviation to refer to the convention. So the United Nations Convention Against Corruption is an international anti-corruption instrument of universal application. It is a globally recognized and binding tool which was developed by nations upon the recognition that corruption is a challenge, a global problem that affects all nations. It is a problem that requires countries to work together in order to effectively eliminate it. So for that reason, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption was enacted. And what is interesting is that Kenya is on record as the first country to sign and ratify that convention. That was in the year 2003. You remember when we had a regime that assumed the power on the platform of zero tolerance to corruption then. So one of the things that we did was to sign and ratify that convention. So this is a convention that provides the standards or the best practice that should guide countries when they want to effectively fight corruption. It creates certain obligations that each member state is required to domesticate within their legal frameworks at the national level. So Kenya has done a number of things. I could mention some of the things that the convention requires. The convention requires member states to have specialized agencies to fight corruption.
Right.
An entity that is away from other law enforcement bodies to specifically deal with the challenge of corruption. So that tells you something, that corruption is a crime, yes, but it is being singled out from all other crimes, so that we have a unit or an agency that is specifically dealing with that. And Kenya has done that because the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and its predecessor institutions have basically been doing that. The other thing that Kenya has done pursuant to that convention is to ensure that it has legislation that guides the fight. And we do not have poverty of laws that we use to fight corruption. That convention also provides for certain forms of conduct that must be criminalized, international cooperation in recognition of the transnational nature of corruption, because nowadays people do not keep their loot within their countries. So there has to be mechanisms of ensuring that wherever you hide whatever you have stolen, agencies can still reach that. So countries are obligated to support each other.
Okay.
And that informs some of the frameworks that we have with other countries that assist us to even secure the return of what has been stolen. And I think a lot of developments have taken place in that regard. So in short, that convention signifies the recognition by all countries that corruption is a complex social, political, and an economic phenomenon that affects all of us. And if you allow me to come home, Kenyans have not appreciated the harm that corruption causes to their daily lives. When you see buildings coming down and they're killing people, some people may not know that some corrupt person allowed some procedures to be violated, perhaps in exchange for some bribe, oblivious of the danger that would attend to those who live in such houses. When you see people dying because they are not able to reach a Kenyatta hospital in time on referral, because there is no medication or they are not able to get some specialized procedure at a certain county hospital, some people are not able to connect that to corruption. So corruption has very devastating consequences, and that is why on Friday, all stakeholders will come together in every country to reflect on what has happened, to take stock of the gains, take stock of the milestones, and most importantly, identify what needs to be done better, to identify the reform areas. And that is what we will do here in Kenya. The commemoration will be at the Kenya School of Government, where EACC will lead other stakeholders. When I talk about other stakeholders, it is important that I clarify. You know, there are people who think that the fight against corruption is the responsibility of EACC alone. No. EACC is a lead agency, and you cannot lead if you do not have others doing what they are supposed to do. EACC is an investigative body, so that means that there is another agency that has to enact those laws. That is why we have Parliament. Another sector has to provide resources. We have people who should report. We have ODPP to prosecute. We have the judiciary to adjudicate those matters. So all those are key stakeholders that will, on Friday, reflect on what we have done in the last 1 year, identify gaps, and then determine what we need to do better.
Okay. Let's go back to this ratification of this treaty convention. When was this ratification? Just as a reminder.
This was...
Let's talk about the ratification by Kenya. When did that happen?
That was in the year 2003.
2003?
Yes.
Okay, that's question number one. Now, the local body then, which is tasked with the responsibility of seeing this convention or treaty come alive, would that be the EACC?
We've a number of agencies that are supposed to do different things. For example, the convention requires that we have laws covering different areas. For example, laws that provide for declaration of assets by public officials. EACC cannot enact those laws. So Parliament has done that. Then we have EACC that is supposed to investigate, recover assets that have been stolen and take them back to the public. That treaty also requires that we have a judiciary that has, set a division or unit that should hear matters to do with the corruption. So basically, the institutional framework that should handle corruption is provided for that convention. And Kenya has domesticated most of those provisions. In fact, Article 206 of our Constitution provides that every treaty that has been ratified by the country becomes part of Kenya law. So even without enacting statutes in Parliament to operationalize the provisions of UNICAC, those provisions, as they are, do apply in this country.
So we have
largely the things we do today are drawn from that.
So we have different organizations that are working in tandem to domesticate this treaty in the country. EACC just being one of them.
EACC is one of them.
Okay. Now,
that investigates corruption.
One of the matters you spoke about is the communication of the detriment of corruption.
Yes.
Oftentimes we see that, we are told about cases that have gone to court.
Yes.
We've been told about individuals who've been arrested,
yes,
or that the EACC has found out 1, 2, 3. I always think that if we were to grasp the magnitude of what corruption actually does do, that perhaps we can then draw parallels between what you would need in a particular area when it came to health, education, infrastructure, and what one case of corruption could mean in terms of loss. In terms of communication, the EACC does have that information. Do you think it's something that could be communicated on a regular, on billboards, on, barazas where people meet, for them to have an understanding? Because you talked about the fact that one of the things that you grapple with is that people don't really understand the magnitude of corruption on livelihood.
And what it does to them,
and what it does to them.
Yeah, we continue to communicate this to the public. In fact, one of the departments that the Commission has is an education department that continuously talks to citizens. I think the problem is not failure to give information, but it is the culture that we have as a country, the attitude that we have. I'll give you an example of something very strange that happened in Turkana last week. We arrested a former CC member in Turkana last week because of forgery of his academic certificates. But when our officers were on their way taking him to Turkana Central Police Station, a huge crowd came and they literally made it impossible. But of course, law cannot be defeated, so he was later rearrested. But they brought a lot of commotion. So some of the questions that we're asking ourselves is whether citizens actually do appreciate why it is important for crime.
What were the citizens saying?
This is our man, he's our leader. Leave him alone.
This is our person.
This is our person. And that is one case, and there are many other cases like that. You have seen individuals following their leaders when summoned to the commission to write statements, and you will find them dancing out there, standing in solidarity with an individual who is accused of embezzling billions of money meant to give service to them.
Yes. Do you think really, Eric, that the people, with all the ujuaji that we have in this country, cannot connect corruption to the effect of corruption? Is that really it? That, actually we hear of corruption and we see bad roads, we see lack of hospitals, we see hospitals that don't have facilities, we see this and the other, and we really cannot connect the lack of these basics that we need to the corruption and the officers who are in office.
Some do, but there are those who want to look at it as something that is helping one of their own. And sometimes citizens also have demands from their leaders. And there are those who appear to have the understanding that, for this individual to continue giving us this, then
he needs to go to Nairobi.
If they have elected a person, there are those who want to look at it as a situation where they have sent him or her to go and collect things for them.
To collect their share.
Yes.
So these are things that need to be addressed. And that explains the challenge that you see even in our county governments today. You are elected an MCA today. People expect you to attend every burial event, every wedding, and contribute.
Yes.
Not just contribute, but contribute seriously.
Handsomely.
And that raises the other question. Who goes around, distributing their salaries? Where do they expect you?
And that's why I'm asking you.
So that's why I'm saying that citizens may not know that it is actually dangerous to condone or glorify corruption. Really? Some may appreciate, that corruption is bad. Some may not know how it affects them. So it is more of a cultural problem, an attitude issue. Let me summarize it by saying that our moral fabric is shattered and it has to be repaired. So that value-based approach will be critical. And that is why the anti-corruption strategies that we have to combine various approaches. Law enforcement, for those who are not able to heed the call to do the right thing, while we continue to prevent and talking to others, to citizens, leaders and stakeholders,
Eric,
to change their attitude.
Our journey in the fight against corruption, started with the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yes.
And then it became an authority.
Yes.
Or was it the other way around?
We
started
had
with an agency.
The Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority first.
Authority and then the commission.
The Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission.
And then
now the Ethics
and then now we came to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
Yes.
Where the Constitution itself recognizes the need of linking ethics to the fight against corruption.
Yes.
Why was it so? Why is it that the drafter of the Constitution looked at corruption and appreciated corruption, but then also added the angle of ethics into it?
This is a moral issue in the sense that an appropriate strategy that would work, not just in Kenya, but indeed in any other country, is one that makes people ethical. Because the understanding is that the moment you are ethical or the moment you uphold integrity, you are unlikely to make decisions that hurt others, because corruption hurts. So I agree with you that our moral fabric is shattered, and that is why the approaches that we use must seek to address that ethical bit. That is the essence of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which is being implemented. And I know there are those who feel that perhaps the implementation of Chapter 6 of the Constitution has not moved at the speed that Kenyans expect. I look at this implementation as a war, and in my view, what matters in any war is whether you are making progress at every stage.
Okay.
Are we?
I can tell you that we are making progress.
I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement. And
one day, one time, we will be there.
It's not even just one day.
A lot has been done, but what remains to be done is
a
much
lot
more. Yeah.
For me, it isn't even one day. The existence of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the fact that one hears their voice, one hears what is pointed out. We have an election and a list is provided for, and we're told these people shouldn't stand. These fellows are not worth it. They are not supposed to be there. They hold their position. However, the determination isn't by them. Someone else determines it, and someone else ignores that advice. They come up again and say, this is the case. Now, this is one of the advantages of chronology. I know that there was a time when such things could not happen. It didn't happen. People were never named. You didn't get names. You're being told, this one did this. So-and-so was involved in this. So progress has been made. My worry isn't what Eric has mentioned about our ethics. No.
Actually, Eric, just to show you that some progress is taking place, and actually serious progress. In the last 3 years, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has made tremendous milestones. One of the areas where the Commission has done well is in the area of asset recovery, because the law gives us the power to take away that which has been stolen, be it unexplained wealth, either by public officials or any other proceeds of corruption, and revert the same to the public. So in the last 3 years, the Commission has recovered assets valued at Kenya shillings 22.8 billion in a period of 3 years. And something else very important, we disrupted transactions that could have led to corruption and averted possible loss of Kenya shillings 32.5 billion. This is where the Commission, through its proactive investigations, would realize that this is about to happen. Some payment is about to be made for services not rendered. And we disrupt. That explains why information is important. We keep on telling people to tell us who is doing it, because EACC cannot be everywhere. But luckily, we have good public officers who would alert us. Hey, look here, I'm being told to do this and this and this. These people want me to sign this and this so that 1 billion is paid. And it's irregular. So when you look at what we have disrupted, that is that 2.5 billion, and also recovered 22.8. That's about 58 billion against a total budget of around 10 billion for that period. Because the average annual budget for EACC is 3.5 per year. So in the 3 years, that's about 10 to 11 billion.
So if you are business, you are actually doing very well.
22. And remember, that is just one strategy, just one of the functions of the Commission. We finalized 501 high-impact cases. When I talk about high-impact cases, I'm talking about cases involving high-profile individuals or huge
sums of money.
501 were completed, that is investigations. We have forwarded all that to the DPP, who has also prosecuted quite a number. And within that period, 191 were finalized in court, and people either convicted or fined.
Did all of those cases end up in convictions or fining?
What's the success rate?
What's the success rate? All of them? Or are we saying that some people then were let go for, the normal thing we hear of lack of evidence? Or when you talk about that, everybody was either fined or jailed?
Let me say this, which is also very important. The concurrence rate between the EACC and ODPP on sufficiency of evidence is currently over 80%. The conviction rate, that is the concurrence rate between the judiciary and the prosecutor, it's above 75%. So there are so many people, by the way, who are fined. If you go to these prisons after this interview and ask for a list of those who are there because of corruption, you will be amazed. There are so many. It's only that sometimes media has a way of highlighting.
So 75% conviction rate. Let's take a break on that note.
Yes.
On a positive note.
Okay.
It's 7:30. Eric Ngumbe is the head of corporate affairs and communication at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. He's here. We're talking about the progress that's been made by the EACC so far ahead of Friday. It's Friday, right? The 9th.
Yeah, Friday the 9th.
December 2022. When the whole world will be commemorating the International Anti-Corruption Day. So what is the progress that Kenya has made in this? Eric has just reminded us that Kenya was actually the first country in the world to ratify the UN Convention on Anti-Corruption. It's a good thing. So we've made very many progress, a lot of progress on this journey.
Yeah.
Eric, let me tell you about what's happening in Kilifi. If you go to Kilifi, there's a place called Vipingo. Right? Between Kilifi heading towards Malindi. In Vipingo, you will find Centum Real Estate, which is actually took over the entire land that was initially called Rea Vipingo. And now the Centum Real Estate is there, and they've been doing some good development. They have phase 1 of the Vipingo development in Kilifi. Phase 1 completed and over 500 homes were handed over. Phase 2 is now being developed. And they're doing apartments and villas. Apartments from as low as 2.45 million shillings, villas from as low as 15.5 million shillings, or even plots for as low as 2.8 million shillings. That's a good development that's coming up there. Number one, Centum Real Estate is a dependable organization. You know it. Number two, the development already has a proof of concept, 500 houses done and handed over. So when you talk about phase 2, it's already something that has been done, and you can think about them as you move forward. And all you need to do is think about a deposit of 245,000 shillings, and you start your journey towards owning a piece of property. Cost. Pigwa na breeze namna hii.
Yes.
Ukiwa pande ya coast. Let's take this break. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Hiya, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda.
I mean, I don't know. What are they saying? How are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes. My name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of the
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, looking at light rain, it continues in Nairobi. Highs of 25 and lows of 16. It's 13 and sunny in Nakuru. Highs of 27 and 25 will be the high. In a cloudy in Nyeri at 13. It's partly sunny at 16 in Eldoret this morning. Highs of 24 and lows of 12 and 26. And sunny conditions in Mombasa. Highs of 32. We'll see highs of 32 as well in Malindi, where the sun is up at 27. It's 18 and mostly cloudy in Kisumu. Highs of 29 and highs of 30 in Kakamega, where it's mostly cloudy at 19. Mostly sunny conditions at 20 in Kampala, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 32 in a mostly sunny Dar es Salaam at 27. It's 17 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 23, and we'll see highs of 32 in a mostly clear Lagos at 25. It's clear at 24 in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 23. Continues in most parts of the city this morning, and we're seeing heightened levels as we're going closer and closer towards 8 o'clock. Traffic hour starts a little bit later, but hey, still some traffic in many parts of the city. On Gong Road, it's heavy as you go towards Community. And we're also looking at it quite heavy coming off Haile Selassie into the CBD. Heavy. And on Thika Superhighway today, well, it's moving very slowly. The service lanes are your friends, but you're going to end up in the traffic that is just past Survey out towards the Pangani Underpass. Muthaiga Square is where everybody's meeting, and it's coming off Kiambu Road heavy. As well as on Limuru Road this morning, it is not letting up. Limuru Road inside there, Figiri Ridge, Kitisuru, all that thing. It's quite busy coming off the Red Hill Link Road that just then joins off of Wayaki Way. And spilling onto Wayaki Way coming off of James Gishuru is what we'll see for some time as well. It's a busy Monday morning. Keep your wits about, folks, and try to be as careful as possible. Slippery roads ahead, that's for sure. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there and let's keep things moving while safe this morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
8:23 today, the conversation continues here on SpiceFM on KTN News with Eric Ngumbi, the head of Corporate Affairs and Communication at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Siti, before we took the break, you were saying that there are things that you see that have been progress that has been made.
Lots of it.
In the fight against corruption.
Lots and lots and lots and lots of progress. It's just that one doesn't speak about it, perhaps loud enough, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You see, there's one thing to communicate and put across a message. It's another for the message to be understood the way you intend it to be understood.
True.
Now, when you speak about corruption, you're not just speaking in a void, you're speaking against some very serious headwinds. And these headwinds are the headwinds of conditioning. When something happens over a long period of time, what we refer to as people getting used to it is what I'm referring to as conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason why people talk of the West and give examples of the West and how it is corruption is fought is because what we consider basic amenities, which are our rights as per our constitution, you will find have been provided for. But when you live in a country where even the basics are non-existent, you see, government as it's instituted to you is actually a foreign agent. And when you come from a background where government was the source of your harassment and problems, the only way you overcome it is when you see things being done in the name of government that are positive and which meet your aspirations. Now, in the absence of these things, the amenities that the citizenry should expect as a right, in their absence, what then happens is an alternate system is created, and that's where our political leaders come in, presenting themselves as the people who are able to solve the problems, when in actual fact they don't. Because if someone encourages and endears a system where there's a dependency on handouts, how on earth is that person helping you? And yet the things we keep talking about, what are they? Roads, health, schools. These are things that every citizen in this country should expect as a given and as a norm, and yet they aren't. So the so-called political leaders assume a position that is unreal. They assume the position of saviors, whereas in fact they are the ones who are at the heart of the problem.
So there is evidence that the war against corruption is actually being won.
Yes, there's lots and lots and lots
and
of
that's the corruption. Even from what Eric is telling us, 32.8 billion shillings that has been recovered since 2019, about 32.5 billion shillings that was about to be corruptly acquired that has been disrupted.
Circumvented.
Right?
Yes.
So this is disruption at that point of at the fact or after the fact.
Before it happens, there is people
The
alert
thought-
you that this is about to happen.
The thought has taken place. People have schemed. Blah,
They have
blah,
done
blah,
everything.
They're waiting
Blah.
for
But just
signature.
before the
Just before it is signed.
money goes.
Yes. And that is where we are even investing a lot because we should not wait until it happens, then seek to set the law in motion. We are engaging in a lot of preventive measures through proactive investigations. And there's another thing that is also very important. The Commission is also working with the public institutions to undertake what we call a corruption risk assessment. That is where we examine all the policies, operational areas, and the systems and the methods of work of an organization. That is dissecting and identify loopholes that may allow corruption. Then you seal them.
Is it possible?
The problem with that approach is that we rely on the goodwill of institutions to
Yes.
implement that. So we are talking to JLAC so that they could make it mandatory for organizations to implement reform recommendations arising from corruption risk assessments. And I can tell you, over 25 counties have actually been subjected to that. And the reports are there. Some governors are willing to implement. Last week, Mutula Kilonzo found such a report. And he invited us. He told us, come here and
let's see
show
how
me
we
how
can
to
do
implement this. So there are some who are willing to do that.
Okay. The numbers that you've talked about in terms of money that has been then recovered, that's one thing.
Yes.
You've talked about then being able to get money that was about to then be so you circumvented a process. Is there any way to measure from the activities that you've been involved in?
Yes.
Is there any way to measure whether any of these activities have resulted in forming a deterrent to anyone who may be thinking, well, all right, here's a cash cow. So they've seen people have been arrested, been charged in court. They've seen that people have been fined or jailed. They've seen that EACC has moved in and then be able to stop an action from happening just before it's been able to happen. Is there any way to measure? Because obviously there's no art to tell what's going on in somebody's mind in terms of what they're going to do. But would it be possible to say that, look, in certain departments, we had seen corruption run rife over the last 5 years, and we've seen that number reduce significantly because of these other activities that have been taking place. Is there any way?
Yeah, there is so much that is happening, and that includes people suffering the consequences of engaging in corruption. Probably it is not being talked about as loud as it should, especially in the area of asset recovery. How do you feel if a cow you have been milking for a number of years is one day taken away and you are told that from today you shall no longer milk this?
You shall buy milk.
I can tell you there are people who have actually run into depression and others hospitalized after certain things they had stolen or taken away. And that is why we continue to invest a lot in asset recovery, because once you take away that motivation, it makes it
painful,
and people are able to see that there is no gain in engaging in corruption. But there's another problem. You've noticed that in the last few months, we report almost on a daily basis of something that has been recovered or a case that has been filed to recover. But now we have realized that there are some land officials who are again colluding to reallocate that land to new grabbers. And that has changed our strategic approach. You recover a piece of land or a government house, then some corrupt public official in a land office sees something that is hanging or something that wasn't there, then colludes with another thief and allocates to a new grabber. We have examples in Laikipia County, and this is what the Commission is doing now. In addition to recovering land and other properties that have been stolen, we are also going to those public officials who are located. Because, truth be told, there is no grabber who can walk into some land office and allocate themselves land and give themselves a title deed. There is a land official involved in every transaction of that nature.
Of course, yes.
So we are not only recovering what has been stolen, but we are also going to those public officials who are involved in that. So we continue to warn them. that will not be tolerated.
When I hear about asset recovery,
yes,
and I then look at the mandate of the EACC,
yes,
as has been prescribed by the EACC Act,
yes,
and the Constitution,
mm-hmm.
and then I ask myself, so how many agencies are really involved in this whole sphere of fighting corruption? EACC is an investigative authority.
Yes.
EACC is also involved in going in instituting civil suit cases in
mm-hmm.
asset recovery.
Mm-hmm.
There is, under the provisions of blah blah blah, that law.
Yes,
that long law.
Which one is this? Is this
the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act.
Yes.
That one.
Yes.
There is the Asset Recovery Authority.
Yes.
There is the Directorate of Criminal Investigations under the police. There is the Kenya Revenue Authority that will also now talk about people who are corruptly not paying taxes. Where do you draw the line between all these agencies that all have a mandate to investigate and all have a mandate to take matters to court?
Let me put it this way. There are two angles to look at that. First of all, the fight against corruption cannot be the preserve of one entity. And that is why we have EACC as a lead agency. And as I said earlier, the reason why countries have specialized agencies to deal with the crime called corruption is because of the very nature of the offense itself. Corruption is not like other offenses such as murder, rape, terrorism. This one is, it has other issues including being a highly political issue. So for that reason, to ensure that there is independence on how these matters are handled, to ensure that uniform standards are applied, so that if Ndu and Regulative were to engage in some kind of corruption, you will not go to different institutions and handle it differently. So to ensure we've consistency and also to take into account the need for the expertise required, because we earlier said that this is complex. That is why countries do establish entities to specifically deal with corruption.
May I say something?
So just before I lose it,
Yes.
so entities are supposed to collaborate. But again, while collaborating or synergizing, we should be careful to avoid duplication.
Okay.
And how can that be sorted? By every entity clearly understanding what its mandate is, where the boundaries are, so that we do not have cases.
So that's my
where
question.
We are
where are the boundaries of the lead agency, the EACC?
So for EACC,
where do they start? Where do they end? Where does the DCI start? Where does it end? Where does the KRA start? Where does it end? Where does the Asset Recovery Authority start? Where does it end? Who handles what?
Because I'm the spokesperson for EACC, let me speak about EACC and for EACC.
You're also speaking as the one who's a lead agency. You've been saying this very many times.
To the extent appropriate, I will.
Okay.
Yes.
The EACC is the entity that is constitutionally mandated to combat corruption, that is, to investigate corruption. That is pursuant to Article 79 of the Constitution. Then that article of the Constitution also requires that Parliament enacts a statute that provides how the functions of EACC shall be undertaken. And those functions have been clearly enumerated as follows: investigation of corruption. And number two, recovery of assets that have been stolen from the public and taking them back to the public. Number three, we have prevention, the one that I talked about. But that does not mean that we do not have other entities that have collateral functions that are related in the pursuit of a crime-free society. For instance, you've talked about ARA. I know ARA has also a wide mandate to recover proceeds of
money laundering,
crime, money laundering, etc.
Transnational crime.
That is it. So for EACC, it's about corruption, and the Commission has lived up to the expectations of best practice in the performance of anti-corruption agencies. One of the things that anti-corruption agencies are supposed to observe, because of the nature of the offense that it deals with, is independence. The Commission has so far discharged its duties in an independent manner and in an objective manner.
Have you ended up somewhere where you're investigating?
Yes.
And then you find another agency has already been there? Or you hear after you've left, another agency has come in. You've gone to a county, you're investigating certain, cases of what you have been told by your informers. There could be corruption happening here. Then the same has been sent maybe to the DCI. The same has been sent to another agency. So you all land into this place and you're all investigating something around corruption. It's basically crime. You're investigating crime. You call it corruption. DCI calls it crime. Asset and Recovery calls it money laundering. The KRA calls it tax evasion. And you all find yourselves in that place.
That has happened before. And the Commission leverages on some of the consultative frameworks that exist where we discuss those issues. We have had the multi-agency framework, that is MAT. Now we also have the National Council on Administration of Justice. So the point I emphasize is that there is need to ensure that there is no duplication on how these matters are handled, because if we have different agencies doing different things over the same issue, that can have problems. But for us as EACC, we remain firmly focused on what our mandate is. That is to investigate and also recover
Are the laws adequate?
Has been stolen. I know there could be gaps here and there, and that is why we have a forum like this one where we have on Friday, so that even as we take stock of what has happened and where there are gaps, these are some of the issues that we keep on raising, because we have to collaborate. But again,
it's always a work in progress.
To work in a manner that should ensure that no agency prejudices what another one does, because we must at all costs avoid silo mentality in the fight against corruption.
Are the laws,
but at the same time avoiding things that could also prejudice the effectiveness that is required.
Are the laws in this country adequate to help you fulfill your mandate? I'll tell you why I asked the question. You say the things that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission investigates are not the same as rape, violence, mass murder, ethnic violence. And I'm saying they are. In fact, when you look at corruption and the outcome of corruption,
yes,
it brings about literally all these crimes that you talk about. Where there has been corruption and where it is entrenched, the suffering that we deal with on a daily basis, the things that we see as runaway, they are as a consequence of these things. The escalation of crime, you just think about it and name it. Up until even the violence we had in the year 2007, corruption is behind literally everything that we have seen going wrong in this country now. Does the law enable you to charge a corrupt person with crimes against humanity? Because that is exactly what they do. When someone steals money meant for a county or for a ministry or for a road, that is exactly what they've done.
You are right to the extent that corruption is, in a way, linked to every other evil that we see in our society. But for efficiency and seamless implementation of the laws, we have different entities that have been tasked or mandated to handle specific aspects. And I want to agree with you that if we were to effectively tackle corruption as a country, that would automatically mitigate these other crimes. Because if there is a corruption within the security sector, a person who has been compromised can allow bad elements to, to compromise our security. If we have a corrupt engineer who will approve a road that is shoddy, and thereafter an accident occurs killing people, so they are linked in one way or another. So that is why corruption, being the mother problem, let me put it that way, as its own agency to deal with. Then we have these other aspects vested in different institutions. So, Eric, to answer your question, entities have to work together, but again, within a framework that allows corruption to be fought without duplication. That is necessary for efficiency and effectiveness.
What are some of the challenges that you've had in the fight against corruption? Obviously, one would think from some of the things that you say that, everything is going along well, but clearly there are some challenges. And what are some of those?
Thank you very much. One of the challenges is what Eric was saying earlier. Our moral fabric as a society is shattered. And sometimes those who do not even plunder public resources may be viewed as stupid. We have
not
people.
sometimes,
We have people who finalized their we have people who finalized their term of office and went home after election. So there are communities where people want to ask them, now you have come, what have you come with? You've been there for 5 years. So I think that culture needs to be addressed and people have to change their attitudes because we have to fight this collectively. Number two, after public apathy, is also the failure of key actors such as accounting officers and oversight entities to also effectively do their work. When I say this, what comes to my mind is the challenge that we have in county governments. When you hear of a county government where we have ghosty workers that have worked there for years, are we saying that the county assembly, whose mandate is oversight, the other one is legislation, and the other one is representation. Let's talk about the oversight one. Where is the county assembly when these ghost workers are recruited and maintained in the payroll system?
They're complicit.
And are we also saying that even those other officers in other departments, there is no single individual in a county who is able to see this as a mistake, including those who manage the payroll and raise the flag? So an effective fight against corruption will require every person to realize that they have a responsibility and that it affects them. The problem we have in county assemblies, again, is also to do with the failure by the CEOs to put in place strong accountability systems. So that's a challenge too. Governors today are the CEOs of the organizations. So the first point of call when we are talking about fighting corruption in counties is actually in the office of the governor. They are the CEOs. So what are they supposed to do? To put in place mechanisms that will make it impossible for any person who is inclined to engage in corruption from stealing. But now if a governor will come later and say, I don't sit in the procurement committee, so don't ask me about this. No. They have to take that responsibility. And in that regard, we must appreciate quite a number of the newly appointed governors who actually went ahead to establish audit committees. Those audit committees have revealed certain things that need to be corrected, but the Commission continues to urge the governors not to stop there. It is not enough to have those recommendations. So we expect them to act on those recommendations by putting in place mechanisms that will, first of all, stop whatever is happening from happening and prevent further happening of the same. And then where we have matters that require other legal action, such as investigation, where people have to be taken to court even for recovery of what they have stolen, then we expect them to refer those matters to us. What we need is very strong internal controls. The other one is on the accounting officers. Every organization has an accounting officer. We expect them to prevent corruption. So you cannot talk about some junior officers or other middle-level managers stealing billions that we are recovering. Then you tell me that the PS or the accounting officer was not aware. So let people do what they have to do, and everybody should execute their responsibility.
The 9th of December 2022 is the International Anti-Corruption Day. We'll be commemorated in Nairobi. Where will it be? Here?
Here in Nairobi, we shall have that one at the Kenya School of Government.
Yes.
It will be live in one of the TV stations so that we can be able to reach every Kenyan and other digital platforms. And then the whole of this week, we have a series of media engagements to talk to citizens so that we can together reflect on what we have done and what needs to be done better. So I want to urge you and challenge you also to also integrate this in your programs for this week, so that we all, reflect on what needs to be done better.
Asante. Erin Gumi, Head of Corporate Affairs and Communication at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Good morning, 8 a.m.
Who is also the governor of Kakamega County, Fernandez Baraza, has complained about the difficulty of the counties in carrying out their duties after the government delayed the allocation of funds for 2 months. Baraza, who met with President William Ruto, asked Treasury to release the funds on time to prevent stalling of projects.
Sisi kama magovernors wote tuko na challenge ya disbursement of funds from the National Treasury. Sasa tumeingia mwezi wa December and we have not received disbursement for October and November. Ningependa kuchukua wakati huu to request the National Treasury please expedite disbursement of funds ili counties zote ziendelee na mipango yao ya maendeleo. You cannot hold on money belonging to counties alafu na expect maendeleo katika ugatuzi. Najua hilo ni jambo ambalo I needed to say that kama chairman of Finance and Economic Affairs of COG.
He also reiterated his readiness to cooperate with the government for development, while praising the initial action of County Boss Francis Atwoli to meet with the president before finally meeting him.
And even us as governor, it is provided for in the constitution, in as much as we are distinct, interdependent, and have mutual collaboration with the national government. We shall continue collaborating with the national government. And I want to take this early opportunity to welcome the president who will be visiting Kakamega on the 8th and 9th of this month, so that he can also have an opportunity of having a conversation with the leaders and the people of Kakamega at large.
Now, former Machakos Senator Johnson Muthama has called on Kenyans to reject the public rallies planned by Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga. This comes as Raila vowed to launch public demonstrations to oppose President William Ruto's administration at the Kamkunji grounds Wednesday, December 7th and Monday, December 12th. In a rejoinder, Muthama claimed that the move is a plot to disunite Kenyans and will erode the achievements made thus far in building a peaceful nation. The tussle stems from the suspension of 4 IEBC commissioners, that is, Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera, Irene Masid, Francis Wanderi and Justice Nyangaya, who resigned Friday. Raila is also accusing Ruto's administration of confronting the Cherera 4 as a plan to influence the 2027 elections. Now, Musalia Mudavadi has strongly complained about the presence of a UDA party candidate in the Bungoma senatorial race. Speaking in a series of campaigns for the candidate of Ford Kenya, Wafula Wakoli, Mudavadi emphasized that there was an agreement to leave the seat to Ford Kenya party, even though some leaders have violated the agreement. His statement was supported by former Senator and now Speaker Moses Wetangula. Wetangula said Wakoli will have the power and influence to have the residents of the area.
Sasa wakati watoto wanatafuta kazi, wakimbia kwa Senator Wakoli, anapiga simu kwa Bwana, anapiga kwa Kisiangani, anapiga kwa Kimutai. He's spoiled for choice. Na kusema baba wa Roma amesema, na hivyo ndivyo
jitetea wenyewe. Ndio mimi I want to assure you my speaker, my party leader. Hakuna mtu atatutisha hii Bungoma kama uko na vijana kama Wafula Wakoli.
Wafula Wakoli of Ford Kenya will face the former member of parliament for Bumula, Mwambu Mabonga, while the Azimio party has the former member of parliament for Kandui, Wafula Munyiji. The Bungoma Central by-election, which will be held Wednesday, that is, has drawn a total of 11 candidates now. 18 select Huduma centers from today will extend its operation hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from the previous 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The 18 centers around the country include Nairobi GPO, City Square, Makadara, Kibra, Isli, Kiambu, Thika, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Embu, Meru, Laikipia, Kisii, Kisumu and Mombasa. According to the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action Cabinet Secretary Aisha Juma, only specific desks will be operational during the extended hours at the aforementioned Huduma centers. The desks include police abstracts, duplicate national identity cards, birth and death certificates, certificate of good conduct, NHIF, KRA, NTSA, and all online government services through the Huduma Cyber Cafe. Additionally, the Huduma contact centers have also extended operational hours from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thus far, the extension is serving at least 2,000 customers daily, from 1,000 served previously, as citizens are able to be supported via call beyond 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. hours. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseta. Good morning.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4. Get to see the world through a new lens and capture the moments that truly
traffic
matter.
is coming off at Imara that drift heading inbound to the city. Then traffic is going to cross over at the exchange and it's connected towards North Airport Road out towards Outer Ring. And it's really busy as you're going in a northerly direction. We're seeing traffic going out towards the Eastern Bypass. And then you're going to go up and see traffic coming off Savannah Road. It's coming off Manyanja. It's coming off Kangundo as well as Juja Road. Everybody heading into the city. All that comes around and connects with the Thika Superhighway, where traffic is snaking along as you're trying to get into the CBD. Kiambu Road is no fun in the park this morning. Heavy traffic. And if you look going east, we're looking at traffic coming off Limuru Road as well, into the belly of Thigiri and Gigiri and every other Erie. It's really busy this morning, and also coming out of Westlands, we have traffic coming off James Gishuru. So it's traffic hour, and we are likely to see this continue for some time. Where are you where there is no traffic and people can use in terms of an option? Let us know on SpiceFM KE on Twitter as we keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
Kenya's
your day.
Biggest conversation. We are live on SpiceFM and KTN News for the next 1 hour. We are live every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on SpiceFM and online. SpiceFM KE on Facebook and YouTube. We have a new guest in the studio, Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, the Honorable Jeremiah Kioni. Before we welcome him, he's going to hear the day's proverb from CT. But before CT comes in, Ndu.
Yes.
37,500 shillings.
That is a discount. It's not what you're going to have to spend. It's what you don't have to spend if you buy the Samsung Z Flip 4 before next week Friday. It's normally 150,000 shillings, but Samsung says, you know what? In the mood of Christmas and Santa Claus and Black November, you can have this phone for 112,500 shillings. How about that for a discount? I mean, does it get any better than
37,500.
that? Yes, off, as in they remove it.
That's it.
Yeah.
37,500.
Remove. You pay that amount less.
Okay. And if you just buy this tin of Kiwi black shoe polish,
another 30-something thousand.
35,000 shillings.
Now that one, they give it to you. But there's more. You buy, you dial that code, you
So you buy, you open the
lid.
You'll find a code under the lid. And then you send it, you dial *459*5#.
And you know what happens immediately? Airtime. To
automatically.
You. Or bundles.
All right.
To you. Then you enter a draw to be able to win how much? 35,000 shillings for school fees for somebody in the 96 days of January. Who doesn't want that?
35 plus 37, 500.
It's raining discounts, man. See the way it's raining out there.
It's a season. Tis the season. City. The day's proverb.
However full a house is, hens will find a place to lay in.
However full a house is, hens will find a place to lay in.
Yes.
Or lay
in.
Mheshimiwa Kioni.
Is it to lay eggs or tree?
That's the question.
That's the question.
So, City, these people of yours.
Sierra Leoneans.
Yes.
What do they mean?
Well, hens
Mahali ya kulala ama mahali ya kutega mayai?
Well, I think you've got to know the heart of the nature of proverbs, haven't you? If it didn't raise questions and it didn't ask you to fill in the blanks where you see blanks, then it wouldn't be a proverb. And with the proverbs, the answer is simple: all of the above.
All the above.
Oh yes, and because it's all true. Yes,
it's all.
If
all
you
apply.
know how chicken go about their business, if it wants to lay an egg, believe me, it will find a place.
And it will
if
announce
it's under your
thereafter.
bed, on your bed, it doesn't matter. It will find a place. By the same token, if it wants to rest, it will also find a place and it will rest. So,
no matter how full,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you think the ground is full, it'll find somewhere to perch itself.
And
that's when you know that they can actually fly.
And
Right.
it will announce thereafter.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Kioni, good morning.
Morning to you.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Asante sana.
That proverb.
Yes.
Do you relate?
I think so. I think it's. I could also say that a time whose idea has come. There's nothing you can do about it. If something must happen, it will happen kama wakati imefika. And we seem to be
in that time.
In many ways.
Is it that time for Jubilee? Is it that time for Azimio? Is it that time for Kenya?
I think it's that time for, let me say, I think that time for Kenya is coming. And it is not very far. There are very many issues that seems to be pointing that to that direction. But many issues pointing to that direction that requires to be addressed now. Because we don't want to wait and find ourselves too late.
You know, the people of Daragwa are just like the people of Sierra Leone. Proverbs in everything that they say. Can you just say this directly? What is this?
That we are here now as Jubilee, as Azimio. The last time we were here, we were just trying to find out where is the balance. But we now have a government, we have an opposition. The opposition will be playing their role. We expect the government to deliver on the promises. We expect the government to respect institutions, to ensure that independent institutions function. We expect the executive not to lay road on some of these institutions and end up with scenarios that may not be desirable for this country. Yes. And with part of maybe some of the institutions I have in mind is IBC, the judiciary, even EACC. Those institutions needs to be respected, and the way to respect them is also to respect decisions they have arrived at, because the nation building is something that continues forever. So I see, like, for example, I know you had somebody from EACC, not to weigh on what you were saying, but just to say that there are many of us in politics who may have been found to have been wanting one way or another in the past. And we had been either requested to behave in a given manner in the coming years. But when as a country we then see like those decisions meant nothing, you are setting the country the wrong way. We have a young population that is looking up upon examples set by us, by government, by institutions. And if I was punished because I misused public funds, and any government that comes later in life, treats that as a non-issue, and I am glorified perhaps for what I did, then you seem to be glorifying the vices, as opposed to the values.
You have walked right into this one.
Feet first.
Right into it. Feet first, head first. So the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission advised political parties and the IEBC against approving some people to stand for office. One of them had been convicted by a competent court. Jubilee, your party, gave him a ticket to vie as Tirisia MP.
Oh, that's Mheshimiwa Waruke.
Yes.
Now, and you see, for the case of Waruke, the law also says that you must exhaust the process, including appeal. And what you'll see, Waruke up to date, he is in and out of the courts. So he has not exhausted. And that is why we could not do anything outside what we can. But where cases have been concluded, taken all the way to the end. And I remember why we were, during the constitution-making process, that was a huge debate. Do we hold people guilty if the appeal process is still on? And we said no. Why? Because we also don't want political witch hunt. People can throw cases to you for purposes of blocking you from moving on. But not to say that that is not a difficult decision to make. But it is there is that loophole. But when it has been concluded and done, then it becomes something else. What I have in mind is people who may have been impeached and the impeachment process completed, and you find yourself again being honored with appointments. That is, and you had finished everything, or the courts have found you wanting from that angle. It's not a good thing.
I know where you're heading with this.
Yes.
And you're talking about sending the wrong message to the country.
Yes.
There are people, and it's true, there are people whom this administration is appointing to various positions, to chairs institutions, to join boards of institutions.
Of national institutions.
Yes. And those persons have cases in court. Those persons have questions of integrity that have been raised against them. Right? Yes, they haven't even concluded the first phase of the prosecution. But they are in public domain that this person has a billion shilling case, and yet you've appointed them chairperson of this and the other. Now, would you have any moral authority to talk against such people whose cases have not even been concluded in stage one, when you have allowed somebody whose case has been concluded in stage one, convicted and punished in stage one, to vie in your ticket, when you had the power to actually just say, no, as a party, we will not give you a ticket?
One is that I'm not sure that that's the direction I was heading. I was a little ahead of that stage. But even the question that you put before me, I would deal with it this way. The individual that you are talking about, because here is a particular individual called Mheshimiwa Waruke, was already a member of parliament. He was convicted while he was serving as a member of parliament.
Yes.
He went in and came out and continued serving as a member of parliament. Even the institution of parliament did not find it necessary to deal with him on the floor. In fact, there was more of helping him out within parliament than when he was trying to find him guilty. So it's a when you are now faced with the same scenario as a party. This is an individual who had been Kenyans from Sirisia have found him fitting to represent them. He was convicted while in parliament. I actually thought that perhaps he would have gotten some direction from Muturi. But Muturi said for as long as he is back to us within, and he has not lost 8 sitting or 6 months, whatever, kind of, he still can serve. So I know as a party it is something that was not easy to decide. But again, you have the people of Sirisia who have to make also that final decision. There is also that decision that needs to be made. But let me admit there's a little bit of some gap that is not we've not been able to fill.
Why wasn't it easy to decide?
And the person who can also the people who can also for the Sirisia people.
Yeah, no. Why wasn't it easy to decide as a party? You just said. It was not an easy decision to make as a party.
Yeah, because you have a sitting member of parliament. You are accusing him for having committed offences, yes, but he was still serving. He continued serving to the end.
A court
and
has
he's
found
coming
him guilty.
and he's coming to ask for a mandate to continue doing what he was already doing.
And the court has found him guilty.
And the court did not stop him from doing what he was doing.
And your party intelligence tells you he's popular on the ground.
And the party intelligence says that the ground requires him. So it's and then you have the IBC tribunal. He's supposed to sit and either deal abroad to him or not. And the IBC also watch their hands and say, we don't want to deal with this issue.
Right.
So I think we need to have some more, when it comes to elective positions, it needs to be a little clearer in the law. And it is not easy because there is also the right of people to make that choice. But when you are dealing with appointive position, when you are appointing, that is different from offering people a person to elect.
How is it different?
It's different because here you are the one appointing a person to go and carry out executive functions.
Yes.
The other ones is representation, legislative, and oversight. But this is executive authority. You are setting somebody to perform functions in an office that he may have been have been found wanting. Yes. And this is what I think Moby Gogi said. You remember when he said, when he brought in the concept of step aside. It doesn't mean that everything is done. But how do you continue functioning in that office which is already having difficulties with you? So it's a little different from elective and appointed. It's some fine difference. Yes. It's a fine right.
It is a fine difference, really. But beyond discussing the law and what the law says, there is this small issue of perception. And it may even transcend the law. And that's where the issue of messaging comes in. We had the Chief Justice sitting exactly in that same chair that you're sitting on, and we asked this question. Because I was puzzled. I said, the law declares itself. A judgment is pronounced. Someone is guilty. So, when you go to appeal, are you still guilty, or is the guilt removed until the issue of the appeal is determined? You go to appeal. Again, the appellant court determines you guilty. You appeal to yet a higher court. Are you still guilty, or are you now exonerated from the guilt until that particular determination by a higher court? What is it?
You see, in other democracies, developed democracies, it doesn't even require the law. It is you as an individual who will say, I have questions on my character. Let me first deal with them. And I'll come back if I'm cleared.
We haven't evolved to that degree yet.
That's exactly, you've taken it from me. We have not gotten to that. That's why we are struggling with the law. Even in those democracies, they didn't provide it in written law. It is a character, it's the quality of the individuals, the conviction, the moral fiber in you that tells you, I cannot do this until I've been cleared this. We need to help ourselves, I don't know how, and we get ourselves, because I cannot see the law clearly coming to spell out that. Because the issue is this. If I was put behind bars or this DPP has been saying, if I was forced to prosecute, to come up with charges against you for political reasons, and then I am punished before I am able to prove that this was on me politically, then it becomes an issue.
You asked the
So I do not see us being able to come up with a clear law that says once you've been, we always say innocent until
proven guilty.
Proven guilty. That is a principle that keeps playing around within the provisions that we provide in the statute.
Sure.
Because it's always there.
But then when you've been found guilty, then you should be able to make a step. And then you say, okay, fine. If the law has not evolved...
We made a mistake, a fine mistake in our constitution making. When we said you have been found guilty
but you're still...
until... let me put it differently. Though found guilty by the first 1, 2, 3 courts, you are still available for use until you have exhausted all the appeal processes.
Again, I'm keen on the things that you mentioned, Mheshimiwa. You've just said as well that, okay, if the law then does not provide or guarantee how we can sort out these issues, then maybe some of the other groups that you belong to then should be able to help you out. For me, your political party steps in. your members of parliament with whom you frolic on a daily basis should be able to. For me, it should be very clear. Jubilee Party should have been able to say, look here, guys, if this is going to taint the party in any way, shape or form, this individual, we should not then give him the nomination. Members of parliament who sit in the same, parliament of brother and sisterhood should have been able to say, hold on, guys, this is tainting our image. But we have political parties endorsing people who even have a taint on their image day after day after day. We have members of parliament who should sit in the positions of legislation, representation and oversight who continue to say, okay, it's all right, we're making laws about how the country's money should be spent, but this person who has a taint on the image, let them go ahead and continue to lead. That's how it's done. Even if the law is not clear, that's how it's done.
One institution that you should leave out of that high moral ground is Parliament. I agree. I think totally. Don't even try. Oh my God.
Why?
Don't try. But if I would be happy, and I appreciate being put on the spot for the political party. We should try and achieve it. We tried, but we failed on two fronts. From that moral, that studying. That was Mheshimiwa Ruke. And there was also our women lab for Embu. Those are two individuals that pass through the sieve, because also within political parties, the same dynamics as you see, we are still interests. Yes, the same interests are still there. So it's a journey that we have to do. We have to carry on, and I can tell you, we tried as much as we can, but I agree that we needed to do a little better with the two positions. But let me tell you where I think that issue rests. It rests with the church.
Let's hear Mheshimiwa out.
Because it's an issue that goes beyond the provisions of the law. You want to, if the church was to come and list the standard of, the expectation of you as a Christian, I think, or even as a Muslim, I think we may continue going that direction. But I see, even as you want to bash the political institutions here, the endorsement came from the churches even much better than we did within our.
So the ethics fight is lost at the altar.
That one is lost at the altar. But that doesn't mean that we should not play our part.
That's true.
Yes.
Let's move to the next bit before we take this break. Your Azimio presidential candidate, who is now the presumed opposition leader, Raila Odinga, has called for rallies starting Wednesday at Kamukunji. Says Jamhuri Day is actually going to be celebrated at Kamukunji. The others can go wherever they want. Is Jubilee part of this?
Rally at Kamukunji, and we will get the details of it. If it's a rally that we need to attend as members of the opposition, we will attend. I'm sure we will get a communication from our party leader, and our party leader is Raila Amolo Odinga. He is the party leader of Azimio. I had reached out to him last week, but I'm sure after this I will reach out to him so that we get into the details of Wednesday rally meeting. Yes.
Demonstrations against the administration.
Demonstration against, I'm sure it is some of the things that we need to discuss. And get to understand how we move on with this process.
There's this subject that we're discussing earlier on in the morning, because it's in the papers, with regards to protests. At what point should one stop protesting? And if one wants to protest effectively, what should one do? I mean, there's a law that gives you a guideline as to what you can do and what you can't do. But there's always the issue when the subject of a protest comes up, and especially if one Raila Amolo Odinga is leading it, then memories of what protests in the past have represented come to mind. And you'll find there are people who move away. Just the very discussion of it is something that they find as an aversion. They move away from it. There are others who seem to think it's a good thing. And then there are those who say, but this government has barely even begun their work, surely. Should they not be given a little more time to sort of like get their ducks in a row and organize themselves so that they can do well? So at what point do you protest? At what point do you say, excuse me, you're going in the wrong direction, we don't think so? At what point do you say, we don't think you're listening enough and what you're doing is not helping at all?
You know, protest is a tool that is available to the opposition, and they should use it when when they think it's appropriate, it's useful. And it's a tool that is also provided for in the Constitution, in our statutes, and you cannot stop any group that want to protest. In fact, you need to ensure that you give them the necessary security to do it, because that again was a gain in our Constitution. And allow me to just draw in an example I got from Brazil. Brazil, when I had an opportunity to visit Brazil and went to their parliament, there is a protest every single day outside parliament by one group or another. And there is a room, there is a space provided for them to protest, to picket, so that they can bring their issues, and their issues are perhaps possibly listened to, and even if not listened to, they weigh in on the legislative agenda. So it's a question again on how you look at these protests, how they are organized, what levels are we talking about. The government should not say that they are ready for the protesting team. That is being arrogant. They should be ready to listen to the issues that are being raised, because that is the work of government. And but to say that they are ready for the protest is really the arrogance that we saw with Kanu. But now arrogance that is shaped by the Constitution, because you cannot stop people from protesting. But good governance will say, we will give this a listening. We will need to have a sitting. And we'll call them in into a meeting and listen to what is it that they are saying. That would happen, of course, if the government is listening. That should happen before the protesting starts. So I don't know whether that I have really answered your question, but to me is that ways of protesting, just like we've talked about the issues of ethics, it's an issue that is still developing. There is the old way. Why was it violent before? Because it wasn't, there was no room.
You're dealing with a brick wall.
It was really, you're dealing with a brick wall, you're dealing with the ferrets, with canisters and helmet and tear gas. And it's actually a war. You are not protesting, you are declaring war, and the other side was fighting you back. And I believe that we've moved from that level. Protest, again, there is that protest of going out into the streets. But there are many other ways you can protest against an issue. And again, as all these are available to the opposition, there are times you walk out, even if it's on the floor of the House, you can do a walkout on any vote. That is still a protest. So it's in different form, it's different stages, and that is why I'm sure we will be able to understand also
what the plan is for Wednesday.
What is the plan for Wednesday?
Let's take a break.
And how we move on.
It's 27 minutes to 9. The Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of Jubilee Party, is our guest this morning. We are talking about Jubilee and the role it's playing in the opposition among the bigger family of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition. 27 minutes to 9. We'll be back shortly.
Congratulations. You've seen the hand of the Lord.
Thank you very much. I've earned another title today this morning at SpiceFM. Mama Justice, I don't mind it.
Joel in Kericho.
Salama sana Heri, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama bwana, mambo namna gani?
Salama kabisa bro.
Mambo ya Inamoi kuliendaje?
Mambo ya Inamoi, vile nilikwambia ndugu yangu, alienda asubuhi na ile gari ya kwanza.
I must have missed it.
So did I.
Even if somebody was to render you irrelevant, there is still work you can do.
Okay, sawa.
I deserve to keep you accountable. You deserve to give me a report. You don't work for me.
I don't work for you. You work for me.
Meet the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 series with the new epic standard for tablets. The Galaxy Tab S8, S8 Plus, and S8 Ultra come with the brand new S8 Pen, so you can power your creativity and take your productivity to the next level. Featuring the fastest chip ever on a Samsung Galaxy tablet, you can be sure of lightning fast speeds when you play or work. Connect your Tab S8 to your other Galaxy devices for a seamless, continuous experience. Available in select Samsung stores countrywide.
Sun is peeking through those clouds at 17, highs of 25 and lows of 16 in Nairobi. It's sunny at 15 in Nakuru, highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 24 in a cloudy Nyeri at 18. It's also 18 and mostly cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 24. 32 is what we're looking at as a high in a mostly sunny Mombasa at 28, and it's 28 and mostly cloudy in Malindi. It'll go to highs of 31 today. Mostly sunny conditions at 21 in Kisumu, highs of 29, and highs of 30 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 21. Looking out into Kampala, mostly sunny conditions at 21, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 32 in a rainy Dar es Salaam at 28. It's 19 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 24, and lows of 14 and 25, and mostly clear in Lagos, highs of 32. It'll go to highs of 29 in a mostly sunny Kinshasa today. It's currently 24.
Spice up your life.
All right, we're seeing traffic is continuing in most parts of the city this morning, coming off of the Thika Superhighway. Still heavy as you're getting into the city. And we're also seeing traffic that is coming out of Westlands into most parts of the city as well. It's a busy morning and traffic has just started to go crazy in some parts. But we'll keep an eye on things. Let us know what's going on where you are this morning. Let's try and keep things to a dull roar. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there.
Spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
And we're back. 23 minutes to 9. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM and KTN Home. KTN News. The Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, Secretary General, Jubilee Party, is our guest this morning. Mheshimiwa, in the last couple of days, we've been seeing some news going around. So Jubilee has had a meeting. They have had discussions, and they come out and they talk about how they will work with the Kenya Kwanza in one way or the other. Other stories that are coming out in social media, now this is where you clarify. News attributed to Jubilee, especially the Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni, saying, when it comes to these political rallies, we will have a stand on them and not directly we're going to be participating in them. So Jubilee and KANU, are they in or out of the rallies being organized by Azimio? Then we see your party director of elections, Kanini Kega, who's now gone into Iala, and him praising the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, and saying people should respect Rigathi, because were it not for Rigathi, I would not have gotten the support I got to go to the East African Legislative Assembly. So the question is, Mheshimiwa, is Jubilee in Azimio or not?
One is that we as a party have never had a meeting to discuss working with Kenya Kwanza. Not one meeting, never. We are in Azimio. Our party leader is Raila Amolo Odinga, and the chairman of Azimio is the former president Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Statement attributed to individuals. Unajua pia kuna wakati Wamasai wanasema naenda kutafuta malisho. So there are statements that I don't want to weigh in at all because they are not party positions. And I again want to say that there would have been some disquiet, and especially within members of parliament. And this arose from the fact that the sharing out of positions that are available to the opposition was not perhaps the way they thought they should have been shared. So that is still there, and it's an issue that will need to be addressed. Outside ODM, in fact, in terms of strength of parliament, the strongest in our coalition is ODM.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is Jubilee.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 is Wiper. And if you look at the slots that went to ODM, went to Wiper, went to Jubilee, you will see that there wasn't, it is not the way it should have been.
It wasn't equitable.
It wasn't, yeah.
Yes. When you are the second strongest in a coalition, it means that the first strongest position available goes to that team, ODM. The second one comes to Jubilee. For example, majority leader, ODM. Deputy majority leader, should be Jubilee. It is Wiper. And instead of even taking minority whip on the floor, you're given deputy whip on the floor. Fine, negotiations, you can justify it this way or the other. But on the face of it, you can actually see here there is some mistreatment, or if it's Jubilee that gave in, then it needs to be compensated on
elsewhere.
This other side. That whole process didn't go on very well. And even now, if you talk to a couple of members of parliament, you'll hear some murmurs of, unhappiness. When you come to chairmanship of committees, again, the same. You see that the distribution is little skewed, and somehow you find like, is it that, Jubilee has not quite been in the opposition. You're fighting veterans in opposition is the name of ODM and Wiper. And maybe it becomes very easy for them to elbow Jubilee out or something like that. But I believe there are issues that will be addressed. We have discussed them. Some of them are difficult to redress, like the position. One of the major problem was the taking away again of the name of Waruke from the list of those who needed to get the PSC position. That is something that was unkind. I know we talked about Waruke and his having been found guilty by one court or another, but again, the appeal process was still going on. And it was known to all of us that he is likely to be released on appeal, board pending the hearing of the case, and that came. So we in Jubilee had reserved that position for Waruke. And now that I've mentioned Waruke, let me also say this as without weighing it too much. But Kenyans also, even as you are putting me on the spot on these issues of ethics, Kenyans don't seem to like people who are saying hallelujah. Unless you are, there is a problem there. But I don't want to speak of hallelujah. Okay. But I don't want to go back there. But it is something that we are also struggling with.
It's a big issue. Yes, he was re-elected.
Not even Waruke now. Look at the country. I mean, you look at it and say, you see, we were running on a ticket of integrity. We are going to get people behind bars. And that, we were punished for that. So even as you are pushing, ask Kenyans, why is it that they have a ranking of individuals who seems to be struggling?
Let's not get there. We've been there.
So the issue, and you can't finish that one.
There is something that your counterpart in ODM said. Now that we're talking about, the complaints between, this whole complaint within members of Jubilee on the sharing of positions, and even now when it comes to maybe sharing of the political party fund. Your counterpart in ODM, Senator, what's his name? ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, Senator Edwin Sifuna, said, these people of Jubilee, they promised that they are going to get us X number of votes in Mount Kenya. What do they bring? They have nothing to talk to us about. Basically signaling that some of the reason why they're treating you they're treating you is because you did not even deliver what you promised you could deliver.
And I was going to answer it very harshly, but let me say it because we have to look for ways to move on together. One is that, again, and that's an issue that we even raised with the principals. When you put up some of these statements in the social media, it's consumed by everybody.
Yep. And it's consumed as though it's the truth.
Including the base. And those few who believed in the cause and voted with you, they really feel hurt. And they wonder, why did you even sacrifice for this? There may have been 2 votes only. But I like the words of Raila. Respect those 2, because even in opposition, we will not be what we are without those 2 votes. So that approach by the SG ODM, and it was also something I had seen with Babu, and I think they were called and cautioned by their party leader. Doesn't help things, and it's not a useful approach if you want to move forward together. So when you are quarreling about, you have discarded, you are unhappy with the chairing out of positions, and somebody throws in that kind of a statement, it doesn't help things. And that could explain why you sometimes may see some little bit of wondering what is happening. So I think that those are statements in bad taste that should not be coming from a Secretary General of ODM at all. And let me also say this, what was the law of Jubilee 2020? Jubilee, remember, we have had 10 years, 5-5, we had Uhuru Kenyatta. And we were not fielding a presidential candidate as a party. It was a presidential candidate as a coalition. We did not lose as Jubilee Party because we didn't even have a candidate for that. We had the coalition. So our role in that whole process was to ensure that there is smooth transition. We had our preferred candidate to whom we would have preferred to hand over in the name of Raila Amolo Odinga. It didn't come to pass. But we still continued, even in the words of the party leader, our chairman, and the party leader of Jubilee. We still have to hand over this government smoothly, peacefully. Because that's a constitutional mandate requirement of the leadership of Jubilee at that time. So I think it is always important. And this is why also, even as we sit in Azimio, you will see that we will need to keep discussing how do we move on as parties within Azimio, and also as political parties that would want to have a play one way or another. Again, come 2027, do we want to win as Azimio 2027? Yes. If we want to win as Azimio 2027, the individual political parties must come up with individual political programs that will help them bring in the votes that they did come in.
You know,
yes.
Rigathi Gachagua has said in the next 25 days, that's by the end of December, all of you people who are still remnants of Jubilee in Mount Kenya, he'll have reached out to you, you'll have crossed over to the other side.
Well, it's a good desire from a political leader. I don't know why he thinks they are remnants of Jubilee. Jubilee is a political party and we sent some young people to conferences in Mombasa, in the others in Nairobi. There are those who are heading to Arusha next week. Others who will be in Zanzibar. From all this political. And one of the most important thing that when they come back, the feedback they said is that from their sitting, and they are from ODM, all these parties, or UDA, say Jubilee is still the party that is most respected on that table. So when the deputy president thinks that he's dealing with the remnants, I would want to just inform him that he is actually dealing with a much bigger group that will be out to play properly when it comes out. But it's also important to acknowledge this, that in the last 10 years, before 2020, Jubilee was very strong in terms of representation on the floor of the House from Mount Kenya. After 2020, that is not the case.
2022.
2022, yes, sorry. After 2022, that is not the case. Majority of our members of parliament are from regions outside Mount Kenya. So when we are dealing with politics on the floor of the House, when we are dealing with politics of Jubilee within Azimio, you will see those politics are really different from when you are dealing with the Mount Kenya region, because you need to know how do you deal with Mount Kenya region to have it within Jubilee forward. And this is some of the things that will need also to be understood by our partners within Azimio, because we want Jubilee back as strong as it were or it was in Mount Kenya. The politics that you need to play with on the narratives, what the messaging for them will always be different from that what we do within Azimio as Jubilee. But again,
so how different would it be? For example,
it will be very different in many ways, because one is what kind of campaigns message did we take to them during 2022? We went with the issue of peace. We went with the issue of continuity. We went with the issue of a track record. And that, when you now sit in through, that was not a concern to them.
What was the concern?
That's a bit. That should have informed our narratives in that region then. Because when you say of peace, they were already in a peaceful environment brought about by the handshake. So it wasn't a worry.
It's something that they already had.
They already had. And you never win on issues people have. You win on issues people desire or issues people fear. So we campaigned on, a comfort zone. We want continuity of these development projects. We want to see, we didn't come up with a narrative that resonated with the Mount Kenya. That is where UDA did that, why is the economy not functioning in your pocket? And they went on and on and on, of course, with the false promises. And so even today, if we don't rethink through the narrative that we take to Mount Kenya, and we also understand the politics that we must do within Azimio, we will not end up being stronger. And this is an issue that we'll, of course, discuss within Azimio. And I hope we will be able to explain to that, to our principals, and especially those who think that we are not in Azimio. By the way, any minute, any day, any hour, UDA, Kenya Kwanza, will be very happy to hear Jubilee is out of Azimio for the reason that they know Jubilee within Azimio. It's a very tricky thing for them.
Interesting. Even as you say this, I mean, and of course you say there are those who are waiting for, some of the meat to fall off this particular skeleton. But then the question is the allegiance to Mount Kenya as Jubilee, or is the allegiance to Azimio as a coalition today?
See, why you come together and form a coalition is because you appreciate that allegiance of people from a region would be to a smaller unit. And that smaller unit then moves to a bigger unit. And that is the reality of this country. I will not be able to sell Jubilee in Kisumu.
Might be a bit of a pickle.
It is difficult to sell ODM in Nyeri. But you can sell Jubilee in Nyeri, you can sell ODM in Kisumu, and the units, when the principals come together, they will agree that this is the way to operate.
Okay.
So Argent maybe is Azimio, yes. People like Azimio, but they will feel more represented through a smaller unit called Jubilee. But again, we are talking about 2027, so this is work in progress.
So let me ask a question differently. Anybody who came knocking to the doors of Jubilee, what would be the answer today? Actually, you know what? My allegiance is to this coalition that gives us the representation nationwide that we are looking for. Or shall we say, we're looking towards 2027 to have the central part of the country then come up once again. To whom is the allegiance pledged? If the deputy president comes tomorrow and is already saying things like Jubilee,
reaching out to
we're
them,
going to reach out to them, and we're going to get
mop them up.
Mount Kenya is it's important that we have Mount Kenya back. And here you are saying that Jubilee is well represented because of its embodiment in Azimio. But then deputy president comes tomorrow and says, actually, these guys, we can work with them. To whom is your allegiance?
No,
is it a difficult question to answer?
No, it's not difficult. In fact, I'm looking for that question. And I will tell you again, it goes, Mount Kenya will rally around an issue before a person. And the issues, once the issues are out, it matters not the person. So, I don't want to sit here and try and say and advise anybody. But the thing is, what are the issues that are emerging that will make the people of Mount Kenya rally against outside where they are today? That is one. Two, and I know that's it's a huge thing I've opened.
Yes, you have.
But
I'm waiting for you to say what you want to say, because I want to ask you something.
I'm moving away from it very quickly. You will have to force me back to it. The other one is this. I want to say that it will be a very nice thing to belong to the bigger coalition as Mio, but it also needed time to get to that level. We lashed it very quickly. We had no time to sell it to the people. And this is another mistake that we made 2022. When you'd come and campaign in Mount Kenya, and not just Mount Kenya, it was across the country, you'd come and campaign as Azimio. Raila is there with Mother. Yeah. Immediately they leave the scene.
Jubilee, Kenya. And
so the Azimio was lost. And that way, we may also have lost some. Not me, we lost consolidating some of the votes that we were needed to do. So the desire, and this is the thing that we have discussed post 9th of August. If it is possible for us to feud, can we feud under Azimio and not under any of the individual political parties? Because then you are selling the blood to the people. So it is still something to deal with the issues of narrative and the institution that, or the body that we would want.
That would mean killing Jubilee.
No, it means that it doesn't mean killing Jubilee or killing ODM, because when you say feuding with Azimio, it's not just within Jubilee areas. It is across even Wiper.
Country, yeah.
Yes.
But what they'd be killing...
But you remember, if then it takes a good format, this is not something we are trying new. That happens. It happened before.
You did it in 2017.
Not, yes, but that 2017 was even more because it was done through a statute or through an agreement. You remember it happened 2007, when 2002 actually, when Kibaki moved from DP and they came and did with NARC, you know. So those movements help move the nation.
They do.
They do.
But they also provide
also
a check and
time.
balance.
Yes.
An internal check and balance that in the absence of it would not be there, because Jubilee as a party is necessary just as coalitions are necessary.
Yes.
Because when they are necessary, the individualism that are brought about by the parties, as I said, is what brings a necessary check and balance. So even if you are a coalition party, the check and balance is internal and it's guaranteed.
Yes.
But the moment you morph it into one, then it is lost.
And you can also get into
dictatorship. Yes.
So it is again another fine balance. You need to get it, but we still lost a little bit in terms of marketing Azimio and the 200 votes, and I hope you can see my finger 200,000 votes, because to me, without the steal, we would still have been able to manage the win. it would have been much easier to ensure that the gap between us and UDA or UDA was much. Yeah, and the steering would have been more difficult if we had been able to do that. But again, very little time for us as Azimio was available
to deal with all this. Let's first get to the news, and then we continue the conversation a bit and open up now for people to participate in the conversation. Keep it here for more. The Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, Secretary General Jubilee. Good morning, 9 a.m.
Up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni now says that as Azimio, they will play their role as opposition and that they hope that the government will deliver on its promises and on its role as well. In an interview with SpiceFM, he says that he hopes that the government will perform its role and not interfere with other departments and their mandates.
We are here now as Jubilee as Azimio. The last time we were here, we were just trying to find out where is the balance. But we now have a government, we have opposition. The opposition will be playing their role. We expect the government to deliver on the promises. We expect the government to respect institutions, to ensure that independent institutions function. We expect the executive not to lay road on some of these institutions and end up with scenarios that may not be desirable for this country. Yes. And with maybe some of the institutions I have in mind is IEBC, judiciary, even EACC. Those institutions needs to be respected, and the way to respect them is also to respect decisions they have arrived at, because the nation building is something that continues forever.
He adds that the government should not appear to undermine decisions made before, especially on individuals who, through investigations, have been found to be unfit to hold public office.
There are many of us in politics who may have been found to have been wanting one way or another in the past. And we had been either requested to behave in a given manner in the coming years. But when as a country we then see like those decisions meant nothing, you are setting the country the wrong way. We have a young population that is looking up upon examples set by us, by government, by institutions. And if I was punished because I misused public fund, and any government that comes later in life treats that as a non-issue, and I am glorified perhaps for what I did, then you seem to be glorifying the vices, as opposed to the values.
Now, the chairman of the Finance Committee in the Council of Governors, who is also the governor of Kakamega County, Fernandez Barasa, has complained about the difficulty of the counties in carrying out its duties after the government delayed the allocation of the funds for 2 months. Barasa, who met with President William Ruto, asked Treasury to release the funds on time to prevent stalling of projects.
Sisi kama magovernors wote tuko na challenge ya disbursement of funds from the National Treasury. Sasa tumeingia mwezi wa December and we have not received disbursement for October and November. Ningependa kuchukua wakati huu to request the National Treasury please expedite disbursement of funds ili counties zote ziendelee na mipango yao ya maendeleo. You cannot hold on money belonging to counties alafu na expect maendeleo katika ugatuzi. Najua hilo ni jambo ambalo I needed to say that kama chairman wa Finance and Economic Affairs of COG.
He also reiterated his readiness to cooperate with the government for development while praising the initial action of Court Boss Francis Atwoli to meet with the president.
And even us as governor, it is provided for in the constitution, in as much as we are distinct, interdependent, and have mutual collaboration with the national government. We shall continue collaborating with the national government. And I want to take this early opportunity to welcome the president who will be visiting Kakamega on the 8th and 9th of this month, so that he can also have an opportunity of having a conversation with the leaders and the people of Kakamega at large.
Now, Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has formed a multi-agency team to investigate a fire incident at a section of the Juakali area where property worth millions of shillings was razed down. The fire destroyed motor vehicles, Juakali sheds, motor vehicle spare parts and assorted equipment worth millions of shillings. Nyong'o, in a statement, said the tragedy, whose cause is yet to be established, had disrupted economic activities in the area. The multi-agency team, chaired by acting city manager Abala Wanga, he said has been directed to table their findings in 48 hours. Now, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa now says that it is up to the governing party's national executive to decide his future in the face of allegations of misconduct against him a day after his spokesperson said he would not resign. Ramaphosa, who said he would attend an executive meeting today, is fighting for his political survival after a panel of experts found he may have violated his oath of office. This is Newswire. Dennis Assetto, good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, it's building up still in different parts of the city this morning. We're looking at it coming off a thicker superhighway. That still continues in some way, shape or form. It's heavy on Jogo Road and we're looking at in and outbound traffic. And then it's throwing up basically onto Landis because there's heavy traffic going towards Kamkunji into the CBD. Very, very heavy. Coming off a thicker superhighway as well as coming off of Kiambu Road today, well into Kiambu Road, going out towards Muthaiga North Road. And we're also looking at traffic that is really heavy coming off Limuru Road. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th Parklands Avenue, traffic through and through. And then also coming out of Westlands, James Gishuru is heavy. It's spilling over to Waiaki Way. And we're looking at traffic then also coming off that drift on the other side of the city, and that's on Mombasa Road, heading off of Imara Daima. You're going to get to General Motors and you'll be fine, and then it's going to clog up again as you get past the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through to Haile Selassie. So it's busy at this time. We'll keep an eye on things, and hopefully by 9:30 you should be fine. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's talk there in an attempt to keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
7 minutes.
The only way to start your
news on Spice FM, on KTN News, and online on YouTube and Facebook. Our guest is the Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. We were asking him the question, are there rifts within Azimio with regards to Jubilee? And you've said absolutely none. Jubilee is inside Azimio as a founder member of Azimio.
Yes.
And your party leader is still the chairman of the Azimio Council.
Yes.
And you're intact.
Yes.
Very good. We continue the conversations. Now, Mheshimiwa, you are a trained lawyer. You're also a trained land economist, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So you understand mambo of shamba.
Kidogo.
Let me tell you.
Kidogo hapa na pale.
Hapa na pale. Let me tell you about this land in Kilifi County.
Yes.
The former Rea Vipingo land. You know, it was bought by Centum. And Centum Real Estate now is developing that land. Various things they are doing, mixed-use development, very many things, industrial park, residential. So they have been doing the residential at Kilifi, the Vipingo development. They have done the first 500 units, phase 1, of apartments and villas, sold and handed over to their owners. Now they're doing phase 2, apartments and villas. And they are starting the apartments at 2.5 million shillings.
Wow.
And villas at 15.5 million shillings. And they're also selling land. Now, as somebody who's a land economist, you understand the value of that former Rea Vipingo land, which is now under Centum. And of course, you've had the plans that Centum Real Estate has. In 2 words, as an expert, yes or no to such a development?
Wonderful opportunity.
There you go. Dioyo. Expert wamesema. I say no more. So Centum Real Estate is basically telling you, if you'd like to get to buy any of these pieces of property, SMS the word Vipingo to 22365. That's the word Vipingo, 22365. Or you can call 0740 400 215. That's 0740 400 215. Get to know more about the Centum Real Estate project. That's Vipingo Development in Vipingo, Kilifi, and how you can buy for as low as 245,000 shillings deposit, and then your dream home begins to become true. City.
Yes.
Remind us that proverb from Sierra Leone.
Yes. However full a house is, hens will find a place to lay in.
However full a house is, hens will find a place to lay in. However full Mount Kenya is,
Jubilee will find a place to lay.
Jubilee will find a place. There's room for Jubilee.
There is room for Jubilee.
Just going back to that question, Washimiwa, so that then we can understand properly then the strategy that Jubilee would have to deploy. Why did Jubilee lose ground in Mount Kenya in terms of the number of elected leaders that you had as candidates and those that got elected?
And you know, the thing that is also important to take into account is when you see it's like a football match. You lose or win.
Yes.
It's not 50-50. 0-0 is not...
it's a knockout.
It's a knockout. It means that the way you saw all leaders from Mount Kenya get exited by UDA, there was a similar opportunity for them to come back and exit the whole of UDA out. It's just something small that we failed to work on. And one of the things is that we took too long in the coalition building process. We took too long to get Azimio moving and release ourselves out to go and campaign. Jubilee also made a mistake because we also took too long to hold our NDC. Jubilee was in government for 10 years. They were moving out of government. They were going to hand over to the next winner. The structure that needed to be employed to go and campaign was different from the one for 2017-2013. I was elected as an SG on the 26th of February. 4-5 months down the line, we were going to have the elections. It was at the middle of nominations. So we were already late in identifying leaders. And leaders, when you are campaigning to be elected, you start a little earlier, not in February. So the people who started campaigning in February also did not get that final traction that needed to get us the win. So quite a number of mishaps that happened. And again, we over-relied on our party leader, who was busy organizing, one, the coalition team, and two, also working on the transition.
His own exit.
He was doing certainly summing up. But those within the party held on to the party without activity until too late. So it is not that we lost that. Let me bring the other issues. Then the other issues that we came is that we picked on the narratives of the Azimio, which was a good thing, but we did not segment it to region. We needed narratives for every region, or come up with a hustler thing that seems to
resonate
excite the whole crowd. But if you come up with that kind of thing without thinking regionally, you will make very many false premises, and because you assume that people are on the same level. So we agree that if we had organized ourselves, if we had just 3 more months, or we had started 3 months earlier, like November, October of last year, we will not be where we are in Mount Kenya region. And it tells you that the ground is still available. People are still there. And as we move round, You also hear, and I say this again. Remember, I did this. Yes, because I don't want to bring this here, but as we continue, I have been engaging people from different counties, constituencies, and especially MCAs, and they can tell you how they lost. There was a clear mishandling of the elections by IEBC and others. There was a steal. That steal happened because also as a team, we didn't quite get it right in good time, but not because we were not popular. I admit this. And that doesn't justify the steal. Our agents, we really didn't handle agents well, and especially Azimio agents. Our legion did handle it well. That does not mean that the other person had the authority to steal. No. Because like Mother has said before, if I leave my door open, it doesn't allow you, it does not tell you that you go walk in and steal. But we didn't have our agents, at least to stop these fellas who have, we didn't have a door. At least to stop these fellas who have, that inclinations to steal anyhow, irrespective of whatever. Because they stole. I am telling you,
and yet you could not prove it before the Supreme Court.
No, we tried, and
Your
it
party leader
became
is now
hot air.
promising to release the dossier in coming days. If you have a dossier, why not just unleash it?
Do we really want to have this discussion? Because my views on that particular subject
will be different.
They'll be incendiary.
Let's move on.
Yeah, we want to move on because it is what they call the hot air.
Yes.
But let me say this. Even as we move on,
yes,
it is those kind of movements that can cause us to lose a nation. Because if we cannot rely on our institutions, IEBC is so crucial in this country. And those who have not been with us long enough would rather know this. 1997, the reconstituting of that was the Independent Electoral Commission or something.
It was, yes.
With the IPPG and the rest. That is a journey that we have had for the last almost now 30 years, shy of maybe 4-5 years. And playing around with that institution will make nonsense of all other institutions that we have, including our constitution. And the fact that we got to where we are with IEBC, we should make sure that we handle it very nice, carefully going to 2027. So while we do not want to deal with the maneno of 2022, that institution needs to be handled very carefully. It was found wanting, even 2017, 2022, and now we can see the manipulations that are going on. We need to be very, very careful. I want to say that if you see, gentlemen and lady, I have been in these elections, and it is not in every election that I have had agents in every of the polling stations in Daragwa. I have come across pastors who say, you didn't have an agent there assigned for you. Why? Because you have an institution you can trust. If people come and vote and the votes are counted, you don't need a person inside there. But the IBC is making it look like you need to have agents. How many Kenyans can afford to pay agents in a constituency and they have leadership qualities? Very few. It is a very costly affair. So what we are now making is that we are going back to where we had only the big names in this country of Matibas, Karumes, Michokes, people with chains of hotels. They are the ones who could run the management of the affairs of the country because they had the money. But we were saying in our constitution, we are recognizing that leadership is still outside money. Other people can lead even without but that's where we are now going back. And since we don't have, allow me to just say, and since you don't have the money, you have to rely on somebody to give you this huge chunks of money. When that person gives you that chunk of money, you become a slave.
You're beholden to them.
You are lost. And that's the kind of scenario that we have now, currently. You can't say much about those in Kenya Kwanza. If they want to say anything against William, they can only say it in whispers. Or they can only have mob behavior, like it happened with Yara. But they cannot, none of them can stand up and say, hapa, atuedio safari.
electoral reforms, I think when we talk about electoral reforms in this country, the body that then is tasked with making sure that elections then are carried out in a manner of integrity and authenticity. Electoral reforms are needed in this country. Nobody can deny that. And I think that a perfect opportunity for people to come together and coalesce around this need is being lost. The question, though, is, had Azimio won, everybody's here today and we're talking about electoral reforms. Had Azimio won, would Azimio today be insistent on electoral reforms in this country? Because win or lose, the electoral reform issue is a big one. Would Azimio be speaking in the same manner about electoral reforms had the win been in a different direction?
If I say yes, it's like having that butterfly in my head. Whatever way I answer, one will say, you said it because you are in a different place. But let me say this. During the 5 years of Jubilee government, the Jubilee government was always labeling with the issue of the commissioners.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, even the appointment on 4 took too long. It was done almost towards the end.
It was the last moment.
And
really.
it was another mistake that was done. Because there were those who were saying, we need, these petitions are already here. Let them be processed. Remove the commissioners. But the question is, those who are not in the government, what are they going to say? You have removed commissioners so that you can organize to win 2022. That fear by the president himself, because he's the one who kept cautioning, said, we will be setting up the country for failure. The hesitation, that cautiousness also costed costed us, whatever it costed us 2022. But the need for electoral reforms was apparent during the Jubilee government. It was clear that even after winning as Azimio, something needed to be fixed within IEBC. Because what we were looking for under the constitution seems to be elusive. But again, every time you put proposals on the table, it becomes very difficult to agree. And my take was this then. The only way to come up with electoral reforms is to immediately you get into office, before people become emotional, call people around the table and let them come up with. And before there's anything at stake, like now we don't know who are going to run 2027. So people are likely to debate the issue without being, partisanship coming into the play. And I know this may be happening now with the UDA, but you can actually see the approach is not come, we discuss, it is my way or the highway. And that is where the problems are coming in. So I want to agree and say, yes, would have addressed the issue of reforms. From where I stand and sit, I would have wanted reforms done, but very early and with everybody around the table. Not one way because you are the executive. Because it's a very tricky thing.
Do you think that the body is independent?
Independent because
I
stands for independence. But independent because it can be dependence if the individuals decide to be. If you play the whims of the executive, then you lose it. That is, there is enough, not enough, there is adequate provisions, room for them to become independent and to, demonstrate it to Kenyans. Because, like, for example, what did they need to do during the 2022 elections? Open these servers. You need to operate like you have this studio with this kiosk.
People can see.
People can see. That's all IEBC needs to do. Because they need to win the trust of Kenyans. It is the trust that we don't have. But when they continue saying these servers are operated from Venezuela, we don't have rights, we can't open them, that alone tells Kenyans, kuna kitu imefichwa. So it is upon the commissioners to work and ensure that they win the hearts of Kenyans today. And of course now, unfortunately, the executive needs to allow this to happen. This executive have decided that they are the ones going to manage the IBC, reconstitute it, kill it, reconstitute it, do everything. Then to 2027, any person in IBC will have a lot of difficulties proving to any other person that they are not working on behalf of the executive. Because This is a one person. You can see the way the tribunal is being appointed, the way Bunge is moving. You know, you move the document on the floor, approved, tribunal in place, suspension comes, you know.
Actually, before I even ask that question, because how is this tribunal formed? Is there a process to it?
The president has the prerogative of appointing the tribunal. But again, if we wanted to see the way you exercise the power that has been given to you wins the confidence of others. If I were him, I would have asked for names. It's not for me to sit behind and pick names alone.
But I'm sure he was offered names. The reason where I'm going with this is whenever we look at the ills of our country, now we're talking of IEBC, we then segment and stratify the blame. So we say it's parliament, it's this. But these independent institutions were set up specifically for that, for a check and balance. Now, you have a parliament that has chosen to work with the executive. You've been in parliament. I'm saying they have chosen because unless someone can tell me these members of parliament are forced to comply, they choose to be complicit. For the longest time, the judiciary was blamed. And they said they are the bottleneck. And yet, from where I sit, the judiciary was making huge strides in actually following the rule of law and doing what they're supposed to do.
Until the hot air.
Yes. Up until the hot air, they were doing really well. Then the hot air thing, one wondered, God Almighty, what exactly do we have here?
They still did the right thing.
Wild goose.
Actually, what they did is what they did. I'm not moralizing and saying it's right or wrong. I am following Mother Karua's lead. I will comply with what they say, but I will disagree with it. Yes, I may not necessarily agree with what they said, but they are the highest court in the land. And if they make a pronouncement, then that is it. The point I'm making is this. When people accept to be complicit with certain things, and our members of parliament certainly do, why do you blame the executive? Why should a finger be pointed at the executive? They're politicians. They've seen a gap and it's available. And it's something that they can acquire and something that they can get control of to make their work easier. Why shouldn't they? If you have a judiciary that again is that way inclined. Around the world, what is happening in Kenya happens. It just so happens that we are there are countries where people have gone to a point where they understand the need for this check and balance. So they will refuse. They will say, no. That we will not do. In our case, when that particular approach is made, they seem to say, yes, we will comply.
You've brought a very important thing that I tried in Bunge, and I agree. Parliament has not been able to do what is expected of them, and they occupy a very important role in the management of the affairs of this country, including ensuring that these institutions that were meant to be independent are independent.
Yes.
And there is something that we didn't finish it. You cannot be dependent if the resources that you're supposed to use are not given to you. And that is something we missed in our constitution. These independent commissions still report to departmental committees of parliament. For you to get anything to the departmental committee of parliament, you must come through a CS, a PS. So we give them the name of independence, but we denied them the instruments to manage the institution. And I said this, and it is in the reports that we filed as a CIOC, Constitutional Implementation Committee, said the thing that we need to do, and I told Muturi, but he refused completely. We need to form a committee of parliament to deal with constitutional commissions. So that they report to that commission and their budgets, the budgets, in fact, it can be a select committee, but the budgets are managed by that commission. So that then the individuals who are brought into that committee must be members ranking, not in terms of the number of times you've been in parliament, but ranking because you have a head or something. Because it's a wing that was formed in the constitution. Independent commissions, including constitution offices, were put in the constitution because we could not entrust the executive with aspects of our management. So we needed a committee in parliament that is above ordinary, influences. And I want to confirm that in Bunge, many those things happen, and unfortunately. So you need individuals who can, like they do in the US, where they have the intelligence committee, where you are vetted by even NIS of that country. They come and say this is a person of integrity, he can serve there. He is better than a CS. He can be able to keep the secrets. Those are the individuals who need to manage a committee of parliament that oversights the independent commissions. And the budget, they are the ones who lobby for money for them. Then these individuals will stop answering to telephone calls from CSs. But as it is today, and I remember I had that discussion with Chepkati, whatever it is you want me to do as chairman of IEBC, I still have to talk to Mushero. I still have to talk to who was in Treasury, Yatani, and that compromises his independence. Whatever programs they want to have on the table, they must be approved by the ministry.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that I am happy with what Chebukati did. No, but that is a point that was clear. It is in the reports of Parliament, and we even proposed that in the standing orders that a committee be formed. And until that is done, this aspect of independence is going to be a tall order to get from these constitutions.
Another time for a break. 9:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. The Honorable Jeremiah Kioni is the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. We are talking about maintaining the role of the opposition as a minority in the House, but having sufficient voice and muscle to make sure that you're holding government to account as Parliament. Ndu, please tell Mheshimiwa about this. He's wearing a black shoe. He always has black shoes with his impeccable suits.
I can actually see my reflection in his shoes. No, seriously. But so obviously...
This must be Kiwi.
See? Even without having to look at it, it's been around for years, isn't it?
Yes.
And Kiwi is saying, look, step up and shine for a lot of people. But hey, what it is that if you go into any store today and buy a tin of Kiwi, you then... dial *459 *5# with the code under the lid, and you get instant airtime. More importantly, you get an opportunity to enter into a draw that will provide 36 winners with 35,000 shillings each that goes towards school fees. January is coming. It's going to be a tough time for a lot of folks. Kiwi saying step up and shine, and let's also step up for you and provide school fees for 36 different students in school.
And remember the school fees.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
3, 2.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Heri Latifa, Muga, Madam Du, nimesalamia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
So baridi ni degree ngapi hapo?
Hata sijui lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot? Iscariot.
Yes.
Is the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ, when he slapped those guys and walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa, took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, we're looking at 19 degrees. The sun is coming out in Nairobi. It'll go to highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 26 in a sunny Nakuru at 16, and it's 18 and raining in Nyeri, highs of 24, coming down to lows of 11 today. We'll see mostly cloudy conditions through Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's mostly sunny at 29 in Mombasa, highs of 32, and it'll go to highs of 31 in Malindi. 22 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 30 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 23. Mostly sunny conditions in Kampala, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 32 in Dar es Salaam. It's 19 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 24, and it'll go to highs of 32 in a cloudy Lagos. It's sunny at 24 in Kinshasa, highs of 29. Looking into Beijing, Monday afternoon, it's sunny at 4, highs of 5 and lows of -11. Light rain in a snowy Paris at 1 degree, highs of 4, and we'll see highs of 8 in a cloudy London at 6. 3 degrees and mostly clear Monday night in New York. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 8 and lows of 3.
spice up your life.
The clock says we'll be out of traffic hours soon, but Lunga Lunga says something totally different. In and outbound traffic is really heavy. It's coming off of Jogo Road as well as taking off some on Lunga Lunga. Landis Road, absolute nightmare this morning. Bumper to bumper traffic all the way through to Kamkunji. Let's take a look at the Thika Superhighway where it's ebbing and flowing. Just past that Utali Drift is where we see some traffic this morning, as well as Kiambu Road, which started early with bumper to bumper action. What's this? It's Limuru Road coming off Peponi, joining with Limuru down the hill is really heavy with traffic. It's getting better on James Gishuru, not as heavy as it was before, and Gong Road also better for you to get into the city without too much of a headache. Should be loosening up no time from now. Let's hear through the morning what it's like for you with traffic. Hopefully Monday morning traffic, the worst is over. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In the final minutes of the show this morning, we want to open the phone line 0719 012 600. So we're talking about the role of the opposition. Jubilee is within the opposition, within the minority in the National Assembly. The leader of the opposition, Raila Odinga, is calling for demonstrations. So first of all, starting with a major rally on Wednesday at Kamukunji, and then others to follow. And he says, in fact, that's what's been covered here, the issues that he has with the government is over several things. One of them is queued appointments, what he calls harassment of IEBC officers, what he calls unfulfilled promises, promise number one being this Hustler Fund and several others. And he says they want to have a conversation with the people to hold the government to account. Whereas there's also holding the government to account through the avenues provided, halls of parliament, for example, as all the members of Azimio in the National Assembly, all the members of Azimio in the Senate, and in the county assemblies as well, the role that they should play in this. What is it that we should be hearing? So let me just pose the question for people to call in 0719 012 600. Yes or no to protests and demonstrations as being called for by Raila Odinga? Yes or no? Do you say yes or no to demonstrations that are being called for by Azimio leader Raila Odinga? Mheshimiwa?
Yes.
In Parliament, are you, as leader of Jubilee and the other leaders of the other political parties, having a conversation with your members in Parliament on how they can approach some of these issues? When Kimani Ichung'wah, for example, came with a bill to amend the IEBC Act and have a different kind of panel that picks IEBC commissioners, what was the stand of the Azimio? When it's going to before Senate now, does Azimio have a stand on this? When the petitions were brought before the National Assembly for the removal of the 4 commissioners, apart from walking out, did Azimio actually have a plan and a strategy? What's a plan and strategy for making sure that the Hustler Fund works and all the other promises that the government has, Kenya Kwanza promised to the people, that they actually fulfill them in-house?
On all those issues, we have had a start. And like you talk about on the issue of the Sheria 4, is that what?
Yeah,
the Sheria 4. Certainly that removal is in bad taste. It is actually the chairman who was found wanting by the Supreme Court, not the other 4, and the issues that were canvassed for in the petitions, because I saw the petitions, and they are not issues that are still issues that were brought before the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court didn't find them worth of mention. They found it necessary to caution Chebukati in the way he had managed himself. So you can actually see here the executive out to punish those who did not agree with their win for the reason that they publicly questioned that still. When you talk about the amendment to the IEBC select panel, again, we have said it before that it is not right for the executive to just bring a panel that answers to, because you talk about the religious group, you can see they were together with the religious organization. They talk about they are really reducing the presence of any other group other than those whom they agreed with, and we objected to that. So I think in terms of
to what extent was the objection?
That's where I was coming. That's what I'm coming to. You see, the starting point of Kenya Kwanza was to steal our numbers on the floor, so that you don't vote down anything they bring. The next thing was to ensure that even when the pronouncement by Wetangula that we belong to the minority, that was not enough. They went to get our members so that on the floor you have a minority. But it's really a minority, certainly a minority that should be heard, a minority that should be heard loud enough. And that has not, that they tried their best. We want to say that they should do more. What we had a meeting recently in Mombasa as Azimio, and we agreed on coming up with a technical team that can help them with the research so that they're able to articulate issues with facts on the floor. But there is also a point I want to bring out that is a reality with the current setup of parliament. And this is a parliament that whose opposition is always going to be very weak. When you have the leaders of the political parties outside of parliament, where you appoint peers to become leaders of that front on the floor, anything that you say doesn't get the same momentum. And that is why, again, during the previous parliament, we had proposals to ensure that number one on the nomination list is the presidential candidate of that party, or the deputy presidential candidate, in that order, number one, number two, so that if they did not win the executive, they found themselves nominated as members of parliament, as members of senate. They can lead opposition from within. The issue of meeting and then bringing out opposition on the floor, yes, we'll try it, but there are times you need to think on your feet. Issues have been brought by the government, and there's no time for you to call a PG and agree on an issue. You need to think on your feet. You can only leash to your party leader or your leader of the party through the phone, or maybe through a text when you're on the floor. And that doesn't help the whole group to rally behind an issue. It is only you who is being told this is the bit and we have done this before. And it's not an effective way. So for as long as we remain with this structure of government, and especially within parliament, it is not going to be useful. That is why both of us, both grouping, Kenya Kwanza, held it that they can actually bring the members of the cabinet to the floor to defend the government on the floor, answer questions in parliament, even if we have not changed our form of government. And we said it is not possible. For us, we had proposed an amendment to the constitution to ensure that we have, we have members of parliament being appointed into the executive without resigning like they did. And that would allow the members of cabinet to come to the floor. In the process, you will bring the leadership of political parties, and you bring substantive opposition to issues. And Kenyans can then be able to understand why are you saying no, because there is you cannot appoint me to become the leader on the floor, and Kenyans outside
elected somebody else,
or they start recognizing what you are saying. No, they have their leaders whom they have seen over time grow, and those are the ones they will always respect when they say it. And that is the difficult that we have with the opposition.
When you are in the majority in the 12th parliament, your leader was in State House.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
And it was very clear what the majority was doing on the floor of the House had the blessing and the coordination of the leader from State House. He was never in the parliament, but he was able to get his things through the floor of the House. Why is it possible for the majority to have their leader outside parliament controlling what's happening in parliament, and not possible for the minority who have an equally strong political leader outside parliament not being able to control what's happening with these members in parliament?
Because when you are in the majority, Yours is to say this is what we want done, and you already have the numbers. So it doesn't matter whether you're able to articulate it well or not. Once it will come to voting, it's a question of people asking, what did we say here? You say, and everyone says, When you're opposing, you need to be able to convince by articulation that the other side. You need also to have talked to your team. They say, this is the argument against this issue. This is why we are arguing against this issue. It is not just a question of voting. The people who argue against are allowed to, are supposed to have more time, and they should be able to come out even more clearer than the people who are pushing an agenda. And again, when you're in the government, meeting is not easy. I mean, it's not as difficult as when you're in the opposition, because when you're on the floor, there are people permanently in your office. The CSCs are in majority's office there. They are always streaming into the office of the majority. It's not the case with the minority. The minority, you actually have to purpose to meet. You have to purpose to meet. You have to call a meeting, and the leader of the opposition, when he is outside of parliament, is not enabled. It's not facilitated.
But you know, before you come in, City, you know, we're talking about the person of the stature of Raila Odinga, who's been occupying that position since this constitution was enacted. This person does not need an office and all. This is what we've seen him politically. He's able to mobilize. He is able to actually move those who have been elected on his party to tell them this is the direction we're taking.
You remember the president?
How is it possible when it
the president sits in the executive 24/7 at State House, managing the government, and the members of parliament become almost part of that government in terms of that they're actually in government, only that they're in a different wing, and they are available to him 24/7. The leader of opposition is not like that. This leader of opposition is outside, sometimes out of the country, trying to sort out issues that are different from. If he was sitting in the office that was designed for leader of opposition like it was before, when we had Uhuru, we had Kibaki, and even Raila, within parliament, you will be seeing opposition in a substantive manner than it is today.
You know, before Wetangula's pronouncement, Azimio had been declaring that they're majority. Now, you had members yanked from you. That looks to me like you had maneuvered. I mean, this is a political game. Somebody understood what was at stake, knew the numbers you had, and said, now, how do I ensure that these numbers don't bother me? So they went about doing what they did, and they simply took people who were part of your coalition and they joined them. Now, the legality of it and all that discussion is a completely different story. It's moot, as you people who study the law says. But the thing is, you are talking about political competition.
Yes.
And everything you mentioned as I'm listening is that UDA outmaneuvered Azimio at every turn. That is what I am seeing. They simply did that,
including with the steel.
You were outmaneuvered at every stage. You know, it's not as though members of Azimio are out of the country and came in just for the day of the election. You've been in this country throughout. You know exactly how Kenyans behave.
How elections are run.
There are very few people who understand the pulse of a nation like politicians, because that's how they become politicians and that's how you get elected. If you can't read that pulse, you'll never get elected. So, and it isn't as though they did not know what is possible. I'm repeating, they were outmaneuvered. The right and wrong isn't the discussion here.
The bit that I want to weigh in is being outmaneuvered within parliament. Because the others are aspects we have talked about. The happening of the steel, and I can tell you, if the institution that is mandated with the running elections decides to play partisan, it's very, very difficult for any other party to do anything, and that's what IBC did. So being outmaneuvered at that level is because IBC did not become the referee that we thought they were supposed to do, and the referee that is provided for in the constitution. They decided to play partisan, and with the help of a few others within the civil servants or within the civil service. In parliament, that we were outmaneuvered because of the character, the quality of the leaders who were elected. I mean, and it's very true you can do when it comes to that, and especially when they are in a political party like UDM, because this is what happened. When they are in a political institution like UDM, the political party is allowed to make a move on the floor. Yes. If there were individual members of parliament within Jubilee who made those kind of moves, we will punish them. We will work on them as an institution. But this is a party that organized itself within a region, lied to the people that they believed in this. And when they got themselves in parliament, and this is, I agree, this was being outmaneuvered because we even helped them become a party.
Yes.
As UDM.
Yes.
But it was to organize that bloc. But the leadership of that bloc came clearly having decided that whoever it is that is going to form government, we will go into government. I think that is something that we must understand, perhaps from our Kenyans from the northeastern. I don't know whether that party is going to hold that UDM, but Romba organized them, and they came and snookered us on the floor. And I can tell you, like you are saying, you can only deal with it legally, but eventually they will move because they have decided to move. Yeah. And even if they were to follow the law, it's just that you prolong it. But the eventual departure had happened. But also it also caused, but when you're in politics, you're in politics. On the other side of the divide, the others also wanted to cripple so that they can run the government. So this is an area that we need to organize ourselves better come next time round. On the floor, we have to be very, very careful. But remember also, the Kenyans who are representing us on the floor of the House are Kenyans who've been elected by Kenyans, and they have their own beliefs, character, and things. And I tell you, we are in for some doing.
There's a statement that comes to mind when I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about what we're saying. It's being too clever for one's own good. Yes. And that is now the difference between a tactics and a strategy. Because what we've seen are tactics. Yes, maneuver here, pull this here, get somebody here. But strategy, long term.
They're part of the bigger strategy.
So now but the most important strategy or tactic is to deliver.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day is to deliver.
Yes.
If you're having done all these political maneuvers, you fail on the delivery of the promises that you gave. The country that you are dealing with is not the Stone Age thing. These are people who are on social media. If it is this fund that was around,
yes.
they are going to feed on it immediately.
They have already gone to test it.
I am telling you, money. The issue is
2.9 billion shillings later.
Yes.
That's what we're being told.
I am telling you, this is the issue. All those maneuvers. If you are not able to deliver, you are done. And the maneuvering became easier because of dishonesty, and especially on the kind of promises. We were too honest with our promises. We had worked on them. If we can do this kind of thing.
You are limited with your promises.
Yes, we are very mean with the kind of promises that we are giving to Kenyans. But there were also promises that we could have delivered given the realities of the times. We didn't want to tell people that Ukraine was not fighting Russia. And when they are fighting, the cost of fuel would certainly not, we are not going to improve it. We did not want to say that COVID did not have an impact on our economy. These people just went and promised all those things. Now they are struggling, and you can actually see they are struggling to make more promises. And one of the promises or requirements they're asking us to do is to obey Zaidi, so that we can try and then it doesn't.
In everything, through prayer and supplication.
So this is a kind of thing. So I agree. While we may have been outmaneuvered, it's because we didn't want to write to Kenyans.
You were very honest.
We were too honest for that particular
Are you
time.
really politicians?
And we are politicians. And I tell you,
is it possible for a politician to be a politician without letting lie here and there?
My kids were asking me the other day, the same kind of question, is this honesty, what does it pay in this country? And another one answered and said, it's a matter of time. That was a really reassuring
It's a matter of time.
It's a matter of time. So I can tell you, it's just a matter of time before all these things come crumbling. They will come crumbling. Our party leader has listed.
Yes.
And you see that the list is beyond protest. Rallies, we are going to have them. And all these things, we are going to consider them. You can actually see now we are going to, you promise this, the deliveries. How have you delivered? And those rallies and like I said, will be talking to him so that he can be able to share or help us through his thinking.
Something disconcerting, though, is that you, as a key leader of a constituent party of Azimio, do not have a plan yet from the leader of the Azimio on what these rallies will constitute on the project going forward. I mean, 2 days before the rally, if the Secretary General of Jubilee does not know what these rallies are all about and what they are expected to achieve, it's a big issue here.
There he would need to, they need to do more. I want to say that because we have our party leader, the former president, but they must appreciate that he's also fairly engaged. So their secretariat must do a little bit better. But again, as I said, I will engage the party leader of Azimio immediately after this, because that is something that we need to fill in so that we don't allow that to play.
Yeah, but your deputy chairman is the chair of the, what is it called, that committee of Azimio.
Yeah, so that we don't allow those things to play out into the public. Yes. Kuna ile unaweza funika na ingine haina maana ya kupabana kufunika. Ile ukweli ni kwamba we want to be part of these ladies. So we want to understand them more. And
there's one call here from Amani. Amani, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I know time is running out. Yes. Are we allowed to comment?
Yes.
I heard you say something like that.
A quick one.
Okay. My question is, yes, protests are allowed. People can go and picket. That's okay. However, the merits of the protest are the issue. If it's Terera 4, that is really a lot of hogwash coming from Raila and team, simply because in the past, Raila has been at the forefront of throwing out practically every single IEBC commission. So he's got no moral ground to argue that others cannot do the same. And they're doing it actually legitimately in terms of they're following the law. And the tribunal is there to decide or to make a judgment on whether, there's merit to it or not. So really, I don't see that this protest, if it's about the Terera 4, is valid at all. In fact, the government should just actually block it. If it's about the Terera 4, because the tribunal has been set, due process is being followed, and so it should not be an issue. If they want to protest outside the tribunal hearings, as people do in the law courts, that's okay. But it's not a matter of, this is illegal, this is unconstitutional, that must not arise at all, because that'd be a big fat lie coming from Raila and team.
I hear you. Thank you, Amani.
Thank you. Bye.
Amani anataka kuleta maneno mingi. But on the issue of IEBC, it has come out, and we were saying the issues of electoral reforms. There is need for electoral reforms. How they are carried out is very, very important. Remember this, and this is an issue that we have belabored since 1992 and even in the 80s. And every other time, a solution has been put on the table. And the kind of solutions that have been put on the table have helped us to move on, but not, solve the issues in a permanent manner. IPPG came, the issue of Kevoito. I don't see the difference between Kevoito and Chebukati. They actually cut from the same cloth. But how we resolve the issues within IEBC is what I would personally be keen on, in terms of, can we have everybody around the table on an equal basis, because this is a referee for those in government, for those outside government, for those who will be in government tomorrow and those who will be outside today, the day after.
Let's pick a final call from Joel in Kericho. Good morning, Joel.
Salama sana Eric, habari asubuhi.
Safi sana.
Sasa hii kitu ya Raila Odinga kufanya maandamano, naona yawachane tunayo.
Kwa nini?
Kwa sababu vile vitu tunapitia kama Wakenya sasa, Eric, ni ngumu sana. So tafadhali, kwa sababu unajua looters watataka advantage ya kuumiza raia bure, na polisi nao wako hapo, hawezi hurumia watu. So tafadhali wachana naye kabisa. Hiyo mzee atulie kabisa, wachana na hii kitu. Hii kitu imemkataa, wakubali na wachana naye.
Imeenda.
Asante sana. Hii ilishaenda kitambo.
Wewe Joel. Joel. But as I said again, is that you see, these are rallies. You know, there are two things: there are rallies and there are demonstrations. So I am certain in the coming days it will shape up to be what will be useful for the country.
Jeremiah Kioni, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you as well for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. The Honorable Jeremiah Kioni is the Secretary General of Jubilee Party, a party that is a founder member and a constituent member of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition. Wamesema hapo wabanduki.
Hatutoki.
See you again tomorrow morning, folks, and thank you for tuning in. Wambie about your buds now that you're going to be using them.
Yes, because I have a series of meetings today. It's the Samsung Buds 2 Pro.
Samsung Buds 2 Pro.
Please.
Higher.
Okay.
Have a lovely day. Good morning. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life